Chapter 402. After a few minutes, Lu Cheng, Yinjika, and the others returned to the locker room. Renli, Chendigua, and the others left dejectedly. The cheers and shouts of the audience only lingered in the air. The staff seized the time to repair the arena. They brought in some bluestones and used some other materials to make the arena flat again. After some work, the second semi-final match began. Shanbei vs. Guangnan. Under the huge pressure, Zhen Huanqing displayed his strongest level, showing a mental state that surpassed the previous situation. Unfortunately, his opponent was called Peng Liyun, and after a long bitter battle he was still defeated helplessly. Peng Liyun continued to work hard, and narrowly defeated Xi Meng, completing a 1 vs 2, before leaving the stage, leaving Li Xiaoyuan to Fang Zhirong. The two of them, whose reputations were once on par with each other, had similar realms. One was a weak 7th pin, while the other was close to 7th pin. They fought fiercely. Fang Zhirong relied on the inheritance that was currently stronger than his opponent's, his slightly stronger strength, and his desire to win that contained anger to win. He won one move and sealed the outcome. Shanbei entered the final match of the National University Martial Arts Competition for the third time in 3 years. Before that, they had won the championship twice. Sometimes, it was not that you were not strong enough or did not work hard enough. It was just that some people were stronger than you and worked harder. In this match, some special spectators were not as excited and involved as the people around them. Instead, they watched the match with a critical attitude. They were the observers of Haiyuan Club and other forces. They were considering whether Li Xiaoyuan and Fang Zhirong were worth roping in. If so, how much would they be willing to pay? Peng Liyun, Renli Lu Cheng, Lin Ke and Chao Yang, and Zhen Huanqing had already been taken. Only Li Xiaoyuan and Fang Zhirong, who had not joined any forces, were worth roping in. After the wonderful battle, these observers left the martial arts stadium of the Imperial City thoughtfully after they had gained something. In the live broadcast room, the host, Lu Chang, made a concluding speech. Both semifinals were extraordinarily intense and wonderful. We didn't let you down, especially the match between Songqing University and the capital. It had all the elements of anxiety, twists and turns, accidents and small probability. It was definitely a match that could be recorded in the history of university martial arts competitions. Let's congratulate Peng Liyun, Lu Cheng, Lin Ke, and the others for meeting in the final. They came from the same division and met again in the final. In addition, let us also thank and bless Chendigua and Chaoyang, Zhen Huanqing, and other students who are about to leave the martial arts circle in the university. We thank them for the wonderful battles they have contributed to us in the past 4 years, and we wish them a better and better journey in life. Having said so much, let's get back to the topic. Let's look forward to the winner of the 2 strongest university martial arts clubs in 2 days. Let's see who can pick up the highest honor. On the evening of April 25th, the usual time, old friend, see you there. As soon as he finished speaking, the broadcast screen switched to the currently dilapidated ring. With this as the background, crisp tapping sounds could be heard. 2 lines of content popped out word by word. On April 25th, 7:40 p.m., the final match of the National University Martial Arts Competition. Shanbei University Martial Arts Club vs. Songqing University Martial Arts Club. 1 year of hard work. 1 year of closure. On the bus back to the hotel, Lu Cheng and the others were still immersed in the happiness of winning the capital by a narrow margin. Yes, a narrow margin. If Yinjika had been forced to use her 2 trump cards in the previous match, Jiang Kongchan, who had been mentally prepared, would not have been so easily baited. She would have been helplessly trapped in the combo, which gave her more than a 70% chance of winning. The joy of winning against a weak opponent who was sure to be defeated would not last long, because it was a matter of course. However, after racking their brains and finally defeating a strong opponent, the joy and excitement would linger for a long time. Even after 10 days, dozens of days, or even hundreds of days, the person involved would still enjoy the aftertaste of the victory. Yinjika was in such a state now. She was obviously excited. If Geezer sure had not banned celebration and midnight snacks to cultivate the awareness of the final match, she would have invited everyone to have a good time. Looking at his girlfriend who had become a chatterbox, Lu Cheng smiled and lowered his voice. How about we sneak out later, have a midnight snack, and have a date? Personally, he was more willing to go back to the hotel to enjoy the massage and whisper sweet nothings to each other. However, Yenjika obviously wanted to have some other activities to satisfy the excitement of the previous match. I don't think that's a good idea. Yenjika looked out of the window at the brightly lit street. Although she said so, her eyes were filled with eagerness to try. Humph, it's not my fault. It's Chung who tempts me to do bad things every time. What are you afraid of? My master has always been tough on the mouth, but soft on the heart. As long as we don't go out together, he will definitely turn a blind eye. Lu Cheng smiled and put his mouth close to Yenjika's ear. He was afraid that Shi Jiangwo would catch him talking behind his back. Yenjika's ears were very sensitive. Just the breath of the conversation dyed them red, which was very beautiful. Yenjika tilted her head, rolled her eyes, and said with a "I'm in a dilemma" look, "Since you invited me so sincerely, I'll think about where to go and what to eat later." While talking, the bus stopped at the entrance of the hotel. Everyone got off the bus one by one. Geezer sure was the first to enter the lobby, and went to the elevator in a hurry. Damn, I'm so happy that I drank all the wine I brought. At this moment, Yenjika saw a few shared bicycles parked by the roadside. She had an idea and blurted out. Chung, how about we take a night tour of the capital? We've been here for so many days, but we haven't gone out yet. Seeing her beautiful eyes, Lu Cheng was about to agree without any principle. However, Yenjika frowned and said in denial. No, you've been hit by the unique skill of the plague sect and your body is still weak. You can't ride a bike like this. She didn't feel tired at all. Because she won so quickly, she didn't consume much energy. She just used the army formula and the meteor force once. She also pretended to dodge for a while. Under the stimulation of her spirit, she didn't feel tired at all. It's okay. I've recovered. Apart from the negative state, Run Li and I haven't reached our limits yet. Lu Cheng volunteered to comfort her. His spirit was not exhausted. As for his physical strength, there was no problem with the Jindan. At most, his feet were a little light and his foundation was not very stable. No. Yenjika shook her head sadly. She pursed her lips and pretended to think, hoping to find a way to get the best of both worlds. Suddenly, she showed her dimples and said with a smile. How about this? I'll take a night tour of the capital. In the past, you carried me on your back. This time I'll do it. Lu Cheng was stunned for a moment, and then he replied with interest, okay. He wasn't worried that Ko wouldn't be able to carry him since he had gained a lot of weight. After all, she had practiced the swordsman formula, and was now a top professional 9th pin fighter with vigorous chi and blood. When she got tired, he could just take her place. He would satisfy her whims first. Then it's decided. Yenjika raised her chin, looking very charming. But as soon as she finished speaking, she frowned again. There's no back seat on a shared bicycle. How could he carry her? How could such a big piece of orange fit in that small storage box? This is a very specific problem. Lu Cheng thought, thinking of a solution. At this moment, Little Ming came over and said with a sly smile. You need a bike with a back seat? You heard that? Lu Cheng asked. Wait, shouldn't you be in the hotel? Just like the others. I'm waiting for my Fang Yuan. Kai Zhongming said seriously. You were talking so loudly that I could hear you from 5 meters away. If not for our crosstalk friendship, I wouldn't have come to help. Lu Cheng understood what he meant. He asked in surprise, you have a solution? Of course, my Fang Yuan school is not far from here. She rides here every time. She has her own car with a back seat. Kai Zhongming smiled and said, Tell me, how are you going to thank me? I won't hurt you for 3 days? Lu Cheng asked tentatively. What kind of thank you is this? How about this? Teach me the hand gestures and pronunciation of the 9 words formula later. I don't want you to teach me your secret knowledge, but to correct my self-taught content. Little Ming said without hesitation. It's useless to only know the hand gestures and pronunciation without specific visualization. Lu Cheng was a little confused. I have my own use. Kai Zhongming said proudly. Lu Cheng suddenly understood and said with amusement. Have you heard of the story of the boy who cried wolf? Don't worry about it. Kai Zhongming laughed. After the deal, he walked out to greet Fang Yuan. Yenjika pursed her lips and tried to hold back her laughter. Chung, I'm suddenly looking forward to your crosstalk combo. Cough, it's hard to come up with a good line. Lu Chung pretended to be serious and made the girl laugh again. After a few minutes, Fang Yuan, who was wearing dark clothes, arrived and lent her bicycle to them. After thanking her, they pushed the bicycle to the side of the road. Yenjika looked at her watch and said, "We don't have much time. Let's go somewhere closer." "Okay. I'll do whatever Coach Yen says. Wherever you go, I'll follow," Lu Chung said with a smile. Yenjika rolled her eyes at him and got on the bicycle. She got into position, patted the back seat and said with a smile, "Come, I'll take you to play. I feel like you're kidnapping me." Lu Chung chuckled and sat sideways on the bicycle, holding on to the support. "Let's go." Yenjika was very excited and raised her voice. She stepped on the pedals and swayed to the other side of the road with Lu Chung. When she was riding steadily, Lu Chung put his hands on her soft and slender waist and wrapped them around her front. At the same time, he put his upper body close to her and breathed in the girl's fragrance. It was the first time Yenjika carried a person, and the first time she was hugged like this. Her body suddenly stiffened and the bicycle's track became crooked. "Careful, careful." Lu Chung quickly adjusted his muscles and changed the center of gravity to help her stabilize. "Don't move your hands," Yenjika said shyly. "I haven't moved my hands. Put them down and don't move them around." Their voices faded away and the two figures left behind a cheerful road. The bicycle started to move again. At this time, the sky was dark and the lights were like rainbows. Chapter 403. In the capital at night, there were bustling streets that were even livelier than during the day. There were also quiet alleys with all kinds of parked cars and doors open sporadically. There were also ancient city walls and mansions that were dark and cold. Lu Chung sat on the back of the bicycle, with Yenjika's hair floating in front of his eyes, her familiar and beautiful fragrance lingering around his nose, her soft and elastic waist in his hands, and her clear and soft voice in his ears. Being carried by her, they passed through the prosperity and warmth of the city, through light and darkness, through ancient history and the present. Between heaven and earth, everything seemed to degenerate into the background, leaving only the bicycle and the two people on it, relying on each other. No matter where they rode, they were fearless. Everything was so beautiful. Sometimes they stopped to take selfies, and sometimes they chatted about the luck of winning the semi-final and the excitement of finally winning it. They also felt the sadness of the capital's elimination, and thought about the difficulties and expectations of the final match against Shanbei. As they talked, their topics diverged. In the night wind, with the swaying trees on both sides of the road, they talked freely about their dreams and common future. They were nervous about being in a foreign country in a year's time, and were sure that each other could overcome the test of distance and time, hold hands and grow old together. Young and frivolous, it was too early to separate. Soon they put this matter behind them and planned where to go for a holiday on the 1st of May. It was a pity that they had to miss the ranking event because they were in the final match. For Lu Chung, it didn't matter whether he participated or not. He was confident that he could still improve himself. In a year or so, he might enter the inhuman stage and be ranked as professional 5th pin directly. At present, he didn't need a professional 6th pin certificate to show his strength and level. It could be used as a stepping stone to enter the professional team or get the security requests of the rich. But Yenjika, because of her congenital deficiency, had no way to enter the dance stage. She wanted to get a professional 9th pin certificate to fulfill one of her wishes. However, she still had a chance in October next year. At that time, as one of the top 2 teams in the division, Songqing University would enter the group stage as the seeded team. They wouldn't need to participate in the first few rounds of the knockout matches, which wouldn't conflict with the ranking event. Secondly, the substitutes would have grown up, and some of them would take time to participate in the ranking event. The lights were bright and the wind was gentle. Yenjika rode the bicycle back to the entrance of the hotel with Lu Chung. Her eyes were full of spirit and joy. She seemed very happy. leaving on a whim and returning on a whim. Along the way, she had the companionship of a lifetime. This was so beautiful that it made her abnormally intoxicated. Which room is Talker staying in? I have to return the key to him. Yenjika locked the car. At this moment, Lu Qing saw that her shoelaces were untied, so he squatted down and helped her tie them. He laughed and said, "Do you want to knock on the door directly?" "It's not me. It's you." Yenjika lowered her head and smiled, looking at her boyfriend's hair like a little girl. "I can't do that either. Who knows what Talker and his wife are doing right now? Wouldn't knocking on their door be ruining their fun?" Lu Qing chuckled. "Your mind is so dirty. Do you think we're all like you? You're a playboy." Yenjika spat. "You call this dirty? They've been dating for so many years, it's a serious matter. What if he and Feng Yuan went out on a date?" Lu Qing finished tying her shoelaces, stood up and said, "I'll call Talker first to make sure he's not in the room, and whether he's doing anything. Then I'll send the key to him. Just to be safe." "Don't." Yenjika suddenly wanted to stop him, but she stopped halfway. "Why?" Lu Qing asked in bewilderment as he held his phone. Yenjika gave him a look that said, "Are you stupid? You just said not to ruin their fun. How could you forget it in the blink of an eye? It's just a phone call." "Oh." Lu Qing suddenly understood and snickered. "You know about this too?" Yenjika turned her head and looked to the side. She snorted and said, "I've read so many romance novels and TV series. At the critical moment when the male and female protagonists are about to do something, the phone often rings suddenly. The male protagonist will be very depressed." As she spoke, she laughed in a low voice, as if she was very happy to hear about this kind of thing. Since she didn't have enough time in her daily life, she rarely read novels and TV series. She often had to rely on Li Liantong to teach her the latest popular scenes. "Yeah, he'll definitely be very depressed." Lu Qing agreed with a smile. "Then I'll send a message to Talker. Actually, based on my understanding of Little Ming and his rich life experience, he'll definitely turn off his phone and unplug the guest room's telephone line at critical moments. That's why I suggested calling him directly. Why else would he be called the Casanova?" "Okay." Yenjika nodded twice like a chick pecking at rice. Lu Qing quickly tapped on the keyboard on his screen and sent a message to Kai Zhongming. "Smirk. Is anyone home? If not, I'll knock on your door directly." For a moment no one answered. Lu Qing put away his phone and looked at Yenjika with a smile. He spread his hands and said, "Am I right?" "Humph." Yenjika glared at him and said, "Then I'll leave the key with you. When he replies, you can give it to him. If it's past bedtime, you can return it tomorrow morning." While speaking, she handed the key to Lu Qing, then bent down and pinched her calf. She said with a smile, "I've been carrying you for so long, now it's your turn to give me a massage to relax." During their date in the capital, she refused Lu Cheng's request to change shifts several times. Under the curious gazes of passers-by, she carried her boyfriend and finished the whole journey. "Okay." Lu Qing was also full of expectations. Hearing his answer, Yenjika suddenly thought of something and blushed. "You promised me that you wouldn't take advantage of me tonight," she said. "You promised me that you wouldn't take advantage of me tonight. How can I massage you if I don't take advantage of you?" Lu Qing chuckled. "I mean in that sense." Yenjika glared at him, feeling both angry and amused. Under the light, she was so beautiful that it was breathtaking. Okay, I won't take advantage of you," Lu Qing said as he pulled Ku into the elevator. "Hee, if you don't take advantage of me, you can take advantage of other things. Besides, how can you call it taking advantage of a boyfriend and a girlfriend?" "Chung, why are you smiling so wretchedly?" Yenjika looked at her boyfriend suspiciously. "Of course not. Look at my righteous face." Lu Qing pointed to his forehead. While talking and laughing, they arrived at the floor where they were staying and stopped at the door of the girl's room. For some reason, they both quieted down at the same time. The atmosphere became quite subtle. In the dim light, something was surging secretly. I'm opening the door." Yenjika didn't understand why she blurted out such nonsense. Lu Qing was about to speak when the phone in his trouser pocket vibrated violently, breaking the atmosphere. Yenjika suddenly thought of something and covered her mouth to laugh, trembling. Helplessly taking out his phone, Lu Qing found that it was his mother, Qi Fong. He had no choice but to accept the call. Yenjika didn't swipe her card. She leaned against the door and looked at her boyfriend with a smile. Hey Qing, are you okay? I heard from the commentator that you were hit by some martial arts of the plague sect. It seemed to be very powerful. Qi Fong asked directly. She and Lu Jisheng had been paying attention to the national competition. Previously, she called to ask about her son right after the competition ended. Later, when Lu Cheng and the others were celebrating, the surrounding environment was too noisy, so she changed the usual time to 10 o'clock. I'm fine. This kind of martial arts only affects me for a short time. Mom, listen to my voice. Is it full of energy? Lu Qing comforted her. That's good, that's good. Qi Fong smiled. The commentator praised you so much that I felt a little embarrassed. Your dad was so happy that he specially went to open a bottle of wine. Speaking of this, she suddenly felt that something was wrong. Your dad is deliberately looking for an excuse to drink, right? Mom is so wise. Lu Qing betrayed his father, Lu Jisheng, without any guilt. Qi Fong rambled for a while and suddenly mentioned casually, the girl in your martial arts club, Yenjika. Yes, Yenjika. Is she also from Xioshan No. 1 Middle School? I remember seeing her once or twice when I went to your school. Mom actually took the initiative to mention Yenjika. Lu Qing blinked at Yenjika and replied to Qi Fong with a smile. Yes, she's from the next class. We just happened to be admitted to Songqing University together. This is fate. Mom, this is how your daughter-in-law came to be. I told you, but your dad didn't believe me. She also came to watch you in the youth tournament. Qi Fong said in a tone that said, I know the truth. After chatting with Yenjika for a while, she finally hung up the phone. Lu Qing looked at the girl with a smile and said, my mom seems to be indirectly asking about you. Do you think she's suspicious of our relationship? During the competition, Yenjika used the army formula that even Lin Ke didn't master. During the celebration, although the scene was a little chaotic and that unemotional hug was not filmed, the feelings between Lu Qing and Ku were still quite special. Humph, aren't you not afraid of your mom finding out? Yenjika wrinkled her nose. I'm not afraid. I want to take you to meet my parents anytime, anywhere. Lu Qing said with a smile. Hearing this, Yenjika's eyebrows curved and her eyes softened. She turned around and was about to swipe the card to enter the house. It's time to give me a good massage. Before she could finish her sentence, she suddenly paused and turned around to look at Lu Qing in hindsight. Chung, even your mom is a little suspicious. Well, my dad and the others. Yeah, my dad hasn't specially called to praise me. It's not like this in the previous competitions. Chapter 404. Lu Qing thought about it seriously and came to a terrifying conclusion. I think it's possible. Even my mom, who doesn't know Ko well, has sensed something, let alone my father-in-law, who has always doted on his daughter. While speaking, he looked at the closed door and said half-jokingly, Ko, do you think your dad and Empress Dowager are sitting inside, waiting for us to come in? Are you stupid? Even if they came to the capital in advance, I have the room card. They can't get in. Yenjika rolled her eyes and swiped the door card. After a beep, she pushed the door open and walked in. She paused for a moment, as if she was really afraid to see her parents. Fortunately, it was empty inside, neatly tidied up, and the faint fragrance of a girl's residence floated in the air. I'm just worried that you'll be nervous, so I'm trying to ease the atmosphere. Lu Qing chuckled and followed her in. After closing the door behind him, he asked, Ku, what should we do if your dad really finds out? If he finds out, I'll take you home. Yenjika raised her hand and stammered. Finally, she said those words resolutely. Phew. After making up her mind, she calmed down a lot. She took out her phone and dialed Empress Dowager Ji Mingya's number. She still didn't dare to face her father directly, so she decided to take a roundabout way. Well, a roundabout way. Although Lu Qing was full of confidence, he was still a little uneasy when it came to the girl's elders. After all, some people couldn't do anything right, but they were more than enough to spoil things. It was easy to ruin the relationship between him and could by talking about family matters. This was also the reason why he didn't mind dating Ka secretly after winning the provincial youth tournament. Before their relationship was completely stable and they were about to get married, if the elders who felt good about themselves interfered and messed things up, they might accidentally have conflicts. And when there were too many conflicts, their feelings for each other would fade away. Therefore, when Yenjika was waiting for the call to go through, he subconsciously slowed down his breathing. Of course, he was also prepared to deal with whatever came. "Hello, Mom?" After a while, Yenjika said in a sweet voice. On the other end of the phone, Ji Mingyu chuckled. "You're finally willing to call back? Mom, how can you say that? When have I not talked to you? I won such an important game today. Can't I share it with you?" Yenjika blushed and retorted in a coquettish tone. In the end she asked, "Where's Dad? Tonight the Empress Dowager sent me a few messages praising me, but my father didn't respond." "Your father?" Ji Mingyu suddenly snorted. "He's buying a ticket to the capital." "Ah." Yenjika was dumbfounded. Lu Qing was shocked. Ji Mingyu appreciated her daughter's reaction very much. She smiled and said, "Isn't it normal for a father-in-law to want to see the hairy son-in-law who stole his little cabbage?" He knows?" Yenjika stammered. Would his father do something extreme? Qing definitely wouldn't dare to do anything to him. He would be at a disadvantage. Unknowingly, her heart was biased. Should I bring a bramble and ask for punishment? Lu Qing only had this funny thought at this time. You and Lu Cheng were flirting with each other, and even used the army formula. When you were celebrating, you couldn't wait to grow on each other. Your father is not a fool. How could he not realize it? Ji Mingyu said in a gloating tone. Empress Dowager's tone made Yenjika feel a little relieved. She asked with concern, "My father, how did he react? Did he say anything?" His expression was very interesting. Surprise, astonishment, anger, and disappointment alternated. Ji Mingyu didn't hesitate to mock her husband. She vaguely recalled the expression of Ku's grandfather when they were caught in bed. My father was kind enough to not beat him to death on the spot. And then? Yenjika continued to ask. Lu Qing listened more attentively. Your dad glared at me and asked me if I had known about it long ago. I said that the signs were so obvious. Even if I didn't know, I would have known. His disappointment was written all over his face. Son, Dad is very disappointed in you. Ji Mingyu chuckled. I told him that when I thought about our time together, he was speechless. When I told him about your attitude and Lu's promise, he kept nagging about how you weren't close to him anymore. You fell in love with a boy and kept it a secret from him. You didn't even take the initiative to talk to him. He said that he wasn't a feudal tyrant, so why did his daughter distance herself from him? Your father is such a hypocrite. Yenjika was amused by Empress Dowager. She sighed and said, My father admitted it? He didn't say whether he would admit it or not. He just kept checking Lu Cheng's information. If I didn't know that your father didn't know any witchcraft, I would have suspected that he wanted to curse his hairy son-in-law. After checking, he sat in a daze for half an hour and smoked 2 cigarettes for the first time. Speaking of this, Ji Mingyu began to feel sorry for her husband. Do you have to be so flamboyant about your relationship? Can't you keep it a secret until you graduate? Anyway, after your dad finished his daydream, he started to book the flight tickets. He said that he wanted to encourage you for the finals, and to see if Lu Cheng was an honest and reliable person. He also wanted to see if he was a playboy. He didn't want you to be cheated. Sigh, I was so worried. Yenjika's heart warmed. She asked, When are you coming over? He booked a flight for the day after tomorrow. He still has 2 surgeries tomorrow. He said that he wouldn't disturb you guys before the finals, and that he would talk to you after the competition. Ji Mingyu clicked her tongue. Your father is back after his shower. Do you want to talk to him? Yes. Yenjika's heart was full of guilt. Hey, Ku, did you go back to the hotel after the celebration? Yen Kai's voice was still magnetic, but there was a hint of tiredness. Yenjika answered guiltily. I didn't celebrate because I was preparing for the finals. I just went out with Lu Cheng and came back. Since Dad doesn't want me to keep it a secret, I'll just say it. There was a short silence on the other end of the phone. Yan Kai sighed with a smile. My daughter has grown up before I know it. I'm not against you dating in college, but I hope you won't lose your life because of love. You'll be more mature and understanding. Forget it, let's not talk about this. Since you like him, just date him. No matter what, don't make yourself suffer. If there's any problem, your mother and I will always be here. Our home will always be here. After the finals, if it's suitable, let's have a meal together. Okay. Yinjika nodded with red eyes, even if her father couldn't see it. Well, rest early and prepare for the finals. Yen Kai hung up the phone with mixed feelings. Yinjika held the phone and stared at Lu Cheng for a few seconds. She clenched her fist and punched him in the chest. She said with a sigh and a smile, "Young man, do your best." Okay. Lu Cheng reached out and held her fist, pulling her into his arms. He seemed to be more nervous than fighting Peng Liyun. I have to do my best in the finals. Although Uncle Yen must have watched my matches before, this time he won't be watching as a classmate or an elder. The more a father-in-law looks at his son-in-law, the more picky he gets. The two snuggled for a while. Yinjika suddenly exclaimed, "My father can tell, but my grandparents, my uncle, my cousin, and the others can't tell, right?" She held the phone, turned around, and said with a self-abandoning emoji, "I'm not going to call them. Let them be." Lu Cheng wanted to laugh. He joked, "It's rare to see you like this. Well, this little fairy is also very cute. Do you want a massage?" "Yes." Yinjika ground her teeth. Lying on the bed, she enjoyed the comfort of the tremors slowly relaxing her muscles. Half reminiscing and half sighing, she said, "My mom said that before I was born, my dad had always hoped that I would be a girl. After his wish came true, he bought a bunch of books on family education, from the infant stage to the teenage stage. Whenever he had time, he would study hard, hoping to be a good father. Father-in-law is very thoughtful and interesting." Lu Cheng praised. He felt that Yinjika was not in the right mood for intimacy, so he stopped thinking about it and focused on the massage and chatting with her. He was not a brainless person who only thought about that kind of thing. My dad has high expectations of me. He hopes that I can be my own woman, have a mature outlook on life, love and marriage, and realize my dreams and goals. Yinjika said with a little guilt, feeling that she had failed to live up to her dad's expectations. But I don't regret it. As they talked and chatted, time passed by. After washing up, the girl fell asleep in the comfortable massage. Lu Cheng, who had returned the key, stayed behind. In the dark night, hugging the soft and fragrant body, he felt his heart was full, neither empty nor lacking. He opened his eyes and stared at the ceiling. He thought about meeting his father-in-law, the finals, and Shanbei. I wonder what Peng Liyun is doing now. The thought flashed through his mind. He closed his eyes and fell into a deep sleep. 2 days later, he would fight with him again. In the swimming pool on the top floor of the hotel, Peng Liyun sat at the bottom of the pool in swimming trunks, bare-chested. The water rippled around him, giving off a glimmer, like a dream world. He was not breathing, but his heart was beating up and down. It was as if he had returned to the beginning, to his mother's womb, to the environment full of water, back to the innateness, looking for the root pulp. Everything around him was far away, and all kinds of things in his body appeared in his mind. Peng Liyun forgot the time and everything, and felt the subtle details of his body in a wonderful state. Suddenly, his body shook and floated out of the water. He exhaled a long breath of turbid air. His muscles were not exaggerated or deformed, but obviously contained explosive power. Good, you improved again. You held on for almost 2 more minutes. Beside the swimming pool, Su Wanyan held his phone and gave a thumbs up. Peng Liyun, who had just come to the edge of the pool, smiled and said, "Not bad." His hair was completely wet, sticking to his head, strand after strand, giving him a different kind of masculine charm. "You take a rest. I'll swim and relax." Su Wanyan put down his phone and jumped into the pool with a splash. Suddenly, he uttered a strange cry as if he had been poked by something. He asked in confusion, "Where is the electricity leakage?" As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly realized something. He stepped on the water and raised his head to look at Peng Liyun, who was in a daze on the deck chair. Chapter 405. On the same night, When Lu Cheng and Yanjika were biking and Peng Liyun was practicing in the swimming pool, all the lights were off in the martial arts club of Capital College. The moonlight shone in through the window, sprinkling silver frost on the ground. Chen Digua stepped on them and came to the locker room door. He paused for more than 10 seconds, then took out his keys, unlocked the door and walked in. Then, with his hands in his pockets, he carefully looked at every inch of the place with the help of the dim light. The metal bench, the partitioned bathroom, and the clean bathroom, everything was in his eyes. Chen Digua took 2 steps forward and stood in front of the locker. He opened the one with his name on it with another key. There were a lot of sundries inside, including shampoo and spare shavers. He took them out one by one and put them in his backpack. His movements were very slow, as if he was carrying a heavy iron weight. It took him 3 minutes to pack everything up. Looking at the empty scene inside, his lips trembled a few times, and he used all his strength to close the door. With a click, he locked the door again. He didn't take out the key, but let it hang there. He put down the spare key and shook it gently, making a faint sound. He took a deep look at the paper nameplate with the name, Chen Digua, written on it. The corners of his mouth curled up. He took a deep breath and looked to the side. His eyes seemed to be sparkling. He reached out and pulled the nameplate off. He carefully unfolded it and smoothed it out. He rubbed it back and forth and put it in the place where the photo was. Chen Digua put on his backpack and stuffed his wallet. He stepped back and approached the door step by step. He stepped back again and stared at the front. After a few seconds, he grabbed the door handle and pulled it back. Click. In the slight sound of the lock locking, Chen Digua seems to be facing the wall to reflect. He still left the key on the door, carried his backpack, and measured the martial arts arena with his feet. There was a strength training room with numerous equipment, an arena with slightly old stone steps, a total of 5 levels of seats for spectators, and a wide field where various traces of training could be vaguely seen. Step by step, slowly and heavily, Chen Digua finally entered the honor room. He stopped in front of the display window where the mini-championship trophies of Capital College Martial Arts Club were displayed. He reached out his hand again, but all he felt was the cold glass. After hovering for a moment, he withdrew his right palm, turned around, and walked outside. The backpack on his back wasn't big, as if he hadn't taken anything with him. Step by step, Chen Digua kept looking around, and returned to the entrance of the martial arts arena at the speed of a snail. He raised his head and looked again. He let out a long sigh and revealed a bitter smile. Clang! The door slowly closed, and everything familiar gradually disappeared from his eyes. In the end, nothing was left. The moon in the sky was as bright as ever. Chen Digua turned around and left. His figure stretched out and swayed as he walked further and further away. In the shadows outside the martial arts club's office, the long-haired Run Li and the plain-looking Shen Yu looked at each other quietly. Neither of them spoke nor stood out. After a long time, there were 2 more sighs. That night, the long-haired, classically elegant Li Xiaoyuan sat in the corner of the cafe. Opposite him was an old man who was leaning back lazily. This is the condition of our Haiyuan club. As long as you agree, you can choose the Dan stage martial arts you want from the Dark Sect, Magnetic Sect, and Plague Sect. Hehe, although they are incomplete, we still have the corresponding content of physical invulnerability. The old man in the dark retro martial arts suit smiled and said, "We're not in the top professional competitions yet, but you should know that witches grow very quickly. It won't be a problem for this old man to fight for another 5 years. Besides, we're also inviting other mighty ones with physical invulnerability to nurture potential reserves from the martial arts school. In short, we'll definitely be one of the 12 superpowers before you graduate." Sounds good. Li Xiaoyuan took a sip of black tea and nodded with a smile. Are you interested? The old man raised his eyebrows and smiled. We can sign a draft contract first. When you send the formal contract and confirm that there is no problem, it will be settled. Li Xiaoyuan said casually, as if this was not an important decision for his martial arts life, but just a matter of going to the supermarket to buy something. No, he would be conflicted about what to buy at the supermarket, but he was not. The old man was surprised and said, "Are you not going to think about it or talk about it? It's settled?" The other party agreed so quickly that he felt it was unreal. There is a reason for this. Li Xiaoyuan smiled. Is there a special reason? The old man asked with interest. Li Xiaoyuan took another sip of black tea and said, My dad grew up watching you compete. The old man was stunned. You are already 20, and your dad is probably in his 40s. Growing up watching me compete. What an unpleasant compliment. Just as the old man was sighing, Li Xiaoyuan laughed and added, Actually, this is a joke. The old man was speechless. The real reason is that you are the first to formally invite me. Li Xiaoyuan leaned back in his chair and replied with a smile. You are not joking? The old man asked worriedly. Do I look like the kind of person who keeps joking? Li Xiaoyuan asked seriously. The old man pondered for a moment and said, Then let's sign a draft agreement first. 2 days passed in the blink of an eye. For most martial artists, this time would not bring any improvement. On April 25th, the sky was blue and the clouds were white in the capital. The temperature was moderate. When they left the hotel and entered the bus, it was not yet dusk. Everything was so bright. The bus stopped and moved, and it did not take long for them to arrive at the martial arts arena in the capital. There were already groups of 2 or 3 people gathered there, looking relaxed. When they were about to get off the bus, Yinjika's phone suddenly vibrated and rang. It was from Empress Dowager. Hello, Mom. Are you cheering for me in advance? Yinjika tried to make her tone light, not letting her parents feel that she was nervous about the competition. No matter how good her psychological quality was, it was inevitable for her to feel nervous in the face of the final competition that she had fought for a year, no more than a year. Ji Mingyu chuckled and said, We are here to watch the competition. Isn't that cheering for you? Your dad and I have been waiting in the cafe outside. We saw your bus coming. Why are you here so early? Yinjika blinked and looked at Lu Cheng. Lu Cheng coughed, straightened his back, and got off the bus in a more natural and unrestrained manner. He maintained his posture, turned around, and held his girlfriend in case she tripped while getting off the bus while talking on the phone. The pressure of the final competition began to show. As the sky darkened, more and more people gathered outside. There were banners, cartoons, loudspeakers, inflatable hammers, and bursts of singing. For Shanbei and Songqing University, this was not their home ground. There were very few diehard fans, and most of the people who followed them only had a preliminary inclination. Therefore, they got along well with each other. In the locker room of the Shanbei University Martial Arts Club, the members, who had experienced 2 finals, were preparing in an orderly manner. No one was too excited or too nervous. When everything was ready, the club president, Su Wanyan, knocked on the metal bench and said with a smile, I haven't been to a bar for a long time because of this final competition. Haha, club president, don't talk. From now on, don't talk. Don't curse us. The blonde young man from Northern Europe laughed in a strange accent. He was strong, rough, and very confident. If you say that, you'll be struck by lightning today. Su Wanyan was both angry and amused. All right, stop arguing. Wanyan, you're in your senior year and will leave school in a few months. Do your best and don't leave any regrets. Coach Huang Qing pressed his hand and said. Su Wanyan nodded slightly. He glanced at Peng Liyun and Fang Zhirong, who were silent with their eyes closed. He shook his shoulders, stood up, and clenched his fist. Then send me off with a beautiful ending. In the locker room of the Songqing University Martial Arts Club. Geezer sure looked around and coughed twice. We're not as good as Shanbei, no doubt about that. But we didn't come here to lose, nor to give them the championship. Think about it, Songqing University doesn't have a national champion. The honor room is waiting for you to fill it. Let's fight. The barefooted are not afraid of the shoe bearers. Hearing these words, Lu Qing looked at Lin Kei, who had his head buried in the ground without saying a word. Ku had said that the best result in the history of the martial arts club was created by her uncle Lin Kei's father. However, they were only runners-up and failed in the finals. Brother-in-law gave up his plans for professional competitions and applied to Songqing University to make up for this regret. Let's make up for it together. In the live broadcast room, the screen was replaying the journey of Shanbei and Songqing University. Shanbei defeated their opponents easily. Xianbei defeated Songqing University in the round-robin battle. Songqing University improved again. Not only Lu Cheng and Lin Ke, but the substitutes also improved. The defending champion defeated their opponents easily and advanced to the next round without bloodshed. Despite being in the death group, Songqing University seemed to be at ease. In the final battle between the strong and the strong, they even had the energy to defeat Huahai. Lu Cheng turned the tables and defeated An Chaoyang, displaying the combat strength of a top 6th pin fighter. Lin Ke fought 1 against 2, not letting Lu Cheng have the advantage. The quarter-finals were peaceful, and everyone advanced easily. In the semi-finals, Xianbei defeated their strong opponents again. Peng Liyun deserved the title of Demon King of the national competition. Songqing University fought hard and won a narrow victory over Capital. Their main force and substitutes played to the best of their ability. Now the two met on the highest stage and were about to end their past. After the review, the host Lu Chang said with deep emotion, "Actually, we don't need to do these special programs. We don't need to exaggerate the atmosphere of this competition. We can do it better with just 2 words. What are these 2 words?" At this point, Lu Chang paused for a moment before raising his voice. Finals. Yes, the 2 words finals contained all the meaning, passion, and expectation of the competition in the arena. National University Martial Arts Competition Finals. Xianbei vs. Songqing University. Peng Liyun vs. Lu Cheng. April 25, 7:40 p.m. It will begin. Chapter 406. The Finals. Yan Xiaoling, who was wearing headphones, became nervous when she heard the host Lu Chang. Her body trembled slightly, and her breathing became a little irregular. Is this the atmosphere of the finals? Is this the feeling of the finals? She browsed the forum, and saw that her wish post had gone up a few floors. She saw that Unparalleled Dragon King, Road to the Arena, and Okamoto's fan were talking loudly, arguing about what Songqing University should do to seize the last bit of hope and win the final victory. According to her usual character, she should be making jokes and talking nonsense to liven up the atmosphere of the forum. But today she couldn't calm down. She was restless and uneasy. She didn't see Fan Fan, Little Wonton, Dog Na, or Chi Chi. They were talking just now. Are they starting to get nervous like me? After drinking a mouthful of water, Yan Xiaoling felt that her chest was stuffy. She couldn't help but get up and walk back and forth. At this moment, she saw Mu Jinyan taking deep breaths. She asked with concern, "Jinjin, what's wrong?" "Nothing. The competition is about to start. I suddenly feel a little out of breath." Mu Jinyan was wearing her favorite traditional Chinese clothing. Her desktop was a cartoon of Lin Quebec. Oh. Yan Xiaoling suddenly realized that she wasn't alone. She was as nervous as a quail. Don't think that Jinjin is so powerful. She can beat me 5 times at a time. But she's still out of breath. On Weibo, He Xiaowei, who had been defeated repeatedly, tenaciously posted a prediction post again. He also bet his reputation and future. "I don't believe that Xianbei will lose today. No matter how one looked at it, they were bound to win. If they lose, I'll change my nickname to Poison Milk Hierarch. You can call me whatever you want in the future." During this period of time, he had become a lot more popular. Many replies were popping up under his post. Damn, the mysterious power from the east is starting to show its power. I'm kneeling before Xianbei. What should I do? Should I take off my pants and bet on Songqing University? I'm asking for answers online. It's urgent. Just you wait. If Xianbei loses tonight, I'll send you a car full of blades. Can the power of the poison healer really change one's fate? Amidst the teasing, all-knowing man in ganghood, who had disappeared for more than 2 days, quietly posted on Weibo, "I'm not going to make any predictions. I'm just going to tell everyone a piece of news. Peng Liyun has already stepped through that door, and is starting to transform into an inhuman. You should know what this means." Breaking through was a process, not a node. After clicking send, all-knowing man in ganghood heaved a sigh of relief. He felt that the depression he had been feeling for the past few days had been greatly alleviated. Then he picked up his cup of water and took a sip. He refreshed the page and saw the new reply. In other words, For Peng Liyun to truly reach the inhuman stage, it would take another 10 days to half a month. All-knowing man in ganghood spat out a mouthful of water, messing up his computer screen. Although that's not wrong, that's not the main point I want to express. The beginning of the transformation meant that something miraculous was happening. It also meant that Peng Liyun's strength had increased to a certain extent. Shanbei, which already had a great advantage, would easily defeat Songcheng. No, they would sweep Songcheng clean. Pulling out a tissue and wiping the screen clean, he saw the follow-up comments. Damn, poison milk hierarch just started to work. Peng Liyun is going to defy the natural order. Is he going to break poison milk's supernatural ability head-on? Although your analysis and predictions are not very accurate, and your subjective bias is too obvious, the insider information is always very accurate. As expected of all-knowing man in ganghood. This, as a student of Songqing University, I can only pray that they won't lose too badly tonight. 3-2 is the best. Peng Liyun's transformation is really timely. As expected of the big devil. Seeing these discussions, Yan Shaoling and Brahmin became even more nervous, and their breathing became increasingly labored. In the stands of the martial arts arena of the capital city, Yan Kai habitually held Ji Mingyu's hand with his right hand, and looked at the center of the arena with a solemn expression. Don't look like that. You look like you have a deep grudge against Lu, Ji Mingyu joked with her husband. I don't think so. Yan Kai touched his cheek with his left hand. He didn't think there was anything wrong with his expression. Ji Mingyu shook her head and smiled. You. Ku will grow up sooner or later. There will be a boy she likes sooner or later. She will have her own family sooner or later. It's just a matter of 2 or 3 years earlier. I'm just worried that a student relationship won't last, and that Ku will be hurt. At this age, everyone is still too immature and idealistic. Yan Kai sighed. You're the only one who worries. She's also my daughter. I'll keep an eye on her. Ji Mingyu curled her lips and looked at the arena. She whispered, don't think about it. Just focus on the competition. This is the final. I've never fought in a final in my life. Yan Kai nodded slightly and looked around. He felt that the atmosphere of the final was slowly fermenting. In the live broadcast room, the host Lu Chang turned to the guest commentator Chen Sanxing and said, Sanxing, I don't think you've predicted the outcome of the final this time. Chen Sanxing smiled and said, because it's relatively easy to predict. There's no need to post it on Weibo. Peng Liyun has shown that he is better than Ren Li and Lu Qing in the previous matches. But this is not his limit. He can start the process of transformation at any time. In this way, even if he can't complete the 1v2, Fang Zhirong can easily defeat the remaining one after a hard battle. Yan Zheka has shown the strength of a top professional ninth pin. She has a lot of tricks and unpredictable fighting styles. But not to mention Fang Zhirong, even Su Wanyan, the Jinx, can easily defeat her. No matter how you look at it, Shanbei has a 70% to 80% chance of winning. However, there are many factors to consider in a match. For example, improvisation and mutual promotion. For example, Lu Qing is very good at restraining Su Wanyan. Even if he has little HP left, he can still beat him. So if a similar situation occurs, Songqing University also has a chance of winning. It depends on how hard they work to create such a situation. A 20% to 30% chance of winning is not a hopeless situation. I hope Songqing University won't be discouraged, won't give up, and fight with spirit and style. Lu Chang couldn't help but laugh. Are you cursing Songqing University with your last words? No, I'm sincere. Chen Sanxing shook his head and smiled. I know. Sincere cursing. Lu Chang joked. They tried to cooperate with the director to make the atmosphere more solemn and tense. In the locker room of the Shanbei University Martial Arts Club, the young coach Huang Qing looked at his watch and stood up. This is the final match. Once you make a mistake, there's no way to make up for it. Let me remind you, don't be careless and lose. We'll welcome Songqing University in the toughest way possible. Liyun, you go first. Don't worry about the rest. Win as many as you can. Peng Liyun woke up from his trance, and the light in his eyes gradually gathered. He nodded slightly and said, okay. His tone was calm, not generous, not impassioned, as if it was a matter of course. Zhirong, you go second. Try not to let Wanyan fight. Huang Qing looked at Fang Zhirong. Fang Zhirong knew the importance of the final match, Lu Cheng's current terrifying level, and Lin Kei's current strength, so he didn't fight to be the vanguard. He gritted his teeth and said, "Okay." Huang Qing looked at Su Wanyan and said with a smile, "If you really have the chance to fight, it's up to you whether the ending is beautiful or sad. Do you understand?" "Yes. Go all out." Su Wanyan shook his fist and said loudly. His emotions infected Bernhard and the other substitutes as they followed suit and shouted, "Come on! Go all out!" In the locker room of the Songqing University Martial Arts Club, Gieser was about to arrange the order of the day's matches when Lin Kei stepped forward and said in a deep voice, "Coach Shi, I want to go first." This. Lu Cheng and Yanjika looked at each other in surprise. They didn't say anything and waited for Comrade Shi Jiangwo to say. Gieser was not surprised. He laughed and said, "You have to think carefully. The first one to fight is likely to meet Peng Liyun in his peak state. I don't want to discourage you, but you are likely to lose." Lin Kei didn't look at the others but stared at Gieser. "I know, but this is the only way we can win. In the previous battles, Lu Qing didn't have a chance to show his strength. Only by making good use of this can we have a chance to win against Shanbei." Since reaching the level of professional sixth pin, Lu Qing hadn't shown the advantage of the Jindan to make up for his strength except for the battle with An Chaoyang and Piao Yuan. In that battle he had reached the limit because he was in a desperate situation, and hurriedly used his power of blaze. In other words, although everyone knew that he didn't have endless strength, they didn't know where the limit of his current state was. Of course, it was foreseeable that he could last longer than other sixth-pin fighters. Gieser just nodded and didn't say anything. Lin Kei continued. "Lu Qing is only a little weaker than Peng Liyun. If I can try my best and consume more of Peng Liyun's energy, he may have a chance to win. As long as he is in a better state than the battle with Piao Yuan, he may be able to defeat Fang Zhirong again. As for Su Wanyan, he is too self-indulgent and doesn't have the Corvine mouth. I'm afraid he can't even beat Kai Zongming. Wait, do I look weak?" Little Ming was dumbfounded and laughed at himself. Lu Cheng was even more surprised. Not because of Lin Kei's analysis, but because he felt that he might have met a fake brother-in-law. He actually said so much. Was it because the more he cared, the more he talked? He turned to look at Coach Yan, and found that her eyes were similar to his. "That's right, but you have a heavy responsibility. If you are defeated by Peng Liyun in his peak state, we can go back to sleep." Gieser looked at Lin Kei seriously, which was rare for him. Lin Kei always had a psychological problem. It would be bad if he was burdened by it. Lin Kei's expression didn't change. He nodded solemnly. "I'm willing to take it." "Good." Gieser didn't say anything else and agreed. He turned to Lu Cheng and said, "Brat, you go second and defeat Peng Liyun." "Yes." Lu Cheng took a deep breath and answered with fighting spirit. "Little Yan, you go last. If you are lucky enough to meet Su Wanyan, don't be afraid. Just don't give him a chance to speak." Gieser looked at Yanjika with a smile. "Yes." Yanjika nodded hard. Gieser laughed and looked around at Li Mao, Sun Jian, Hezi, Kai Zongming and the others. "Do you feel sorry that I didn't give you a chance to play?" "No." Kai Zongming answered immediately. "I like it the most. Coach Shi, think about it. We don't have to do anything but shout 666 when Cheng and Lin Kei win the game. Then we can wait for the prize money. What a wonderful thing." Looking at Little Ming's shameless face, Gieser was speechless for a while. Time flew. In the blink of an eye, the final match was about to begin. In the locker rooms of both sides, the team members spontaneously formed a circle. The team from Shanbei put their hands on top of each other and shook them. Then they suddenly shouted, "Champion!" On the team of Songqing University, Lu Cheng and the others still had their arms around each other's shoulders and shouted in unison, "Victory is ours!" Clang! The doors of both locker rooms opened together. Under the leadership of Lu Cheng and Peng Liyun, the team members of Songqing University and Shanbei University filed out and walked into the spotlight. At this time, the referee also stepped into the arena to check the time. April 25, 7:40 p.m., the final match of the National University Martial Arts Competition officially began. Chapter 407. The night was as dark as ink, and neon lights were flashing in the city. The martial arts stadium was packed with people, shouting "Champion, champion." Suddenly the announcer extended his voice and shouted, "Mr. The first round of the finals of this year's National University Martial Arts Competition. Peng Liyun. Lin Ke." With a boom, the two names were exchanged for a heat wave that could overturn the roof. Most of the audience present tore their throats open, letting go of all restraint, forgetting themselves to vent the passion that was usually restrained in their bodies. In the center of the arena, the referee slightly narrowed his eyes and tilted his head to feel the atmosphere. He suddenly sighed. No one knew whether he was reminiscing about his lost youth or feeling sorry for the last part of his life. Finals youth, what a beautiful noun. The referee quickly calmed down and waved to both sides, indicating that the contestants could enter the arena. In the seats of Shanbei University Martial Arts Club, Peng Liyun, without a jacket, slowly stood up. The light in his eyes gathered little by little. Gradually, he changed from an easily ignored passerby to a terrifying creature with an imposing manner. He reached out his hands and high-fived Fang Zhirong, Su Wanyan, and the others. Then he calmly walked to the stone steps. In the seats of Songqing University Martial Arts Club, Lin Ke, who had volunteered to fight, had already stood in front of his seat. After seeing the referee's gesture, he turned sideways and reached out his right hand to Lu Cheng. Clap. Lu Cheng not only high-fived him, but also took the opportunity to hold his hand, as if he wanted to give him all his strength and courage. "Come on." Lu Cheng shook his hand hard. Lin Ke didn't say anything, but nodded slightly but firmly enough. With Lu Cheng's demonstration, Yan Zhika, Kai Zongming, Li Mao, and Sun Jian also shook Lin Ke's hand while high-fiving, as if they wanted to turn their blessings and expectations into extra strength for him. "Come on. Come on. Come on." In the sincere voices, Lin Ke responded to them one by one. Then he turned around and walked step by step, staring at the arena. The arena was illuminated by the spotlights. It was so dazzling that it seemed like a dream. It was no different from the previous matches. However, Lin Ke was in a trance. He felt that what he was seeing was beginning to overlap with the scenes in his memories from many years ago. That was also the arena shrouded in light. That was also the venue for the finals. That was also where the members of Songqing University Martial Arts Club gathered solemnly. However, at that time, he could only watch from the stands. He could not do anything about the outcome of the battle, nor could he do anything about the grief of his father, big brothers, and big sisters. And now, I will take their place and ascend to this place of glory. I will use my own fists and feet to fight to avoid regret. I've walked for so many years, and now I'm finally here. In the studio, the guest commentator, Chun Sansheng, sighed. Songqing University has indeed adopted the riskiest and most promising strategy. Yes. The host Lu Chang agreed. If Lin Ke can exhaust Peng Liyun, then Songqing University will have a higher chance of winning the championship. However, if Lin Ke is defeated by Peng Liyun, then Songqing University will have almost no chance of making a comeback. I think the latter is more likely to happen. After all, there is a precedent. You can't say that. In December last year, Lin Ke was defeated by Peng Liyun. However, at that time, he had a hard fight with Fang Zhirong. At that time, he had at most 20 to 30% of his strength left. In the following half year, he improved by leaps and bounds and reached the level of a strong 7th pin. He is no longer an amateur. Correspondingly, Peng Liyun has indeed improved, but the extent of his improvement is obviously not as great as Lin Ke's. In fact, the gap between the two has narrowed. Chun Sansheng expressed his opinion. The inhuman stage was a barrier. Even with Peng Liyun's ability, it was inevitable that he would reach a bottleneck and his strength would stagnate. Lu Chang chuckled. Sansheng, you have to consider another factor. Peng Liyun, who defeated Lin Ke so quickly last year, obviously didn't use his full strength. That's true. Besides, if Peng Liyun has started to transform, then it must be accompanied by a certain degree of improvement. Chen Sanxing paused. We can only know the specific situation after the fight. He didn't make a judgment or prediction because he didn't have enough information. However, his attitude and inclination in his words were self-evident. The stone steps under his feet reduced layer by layer, and the road shortened inch by inch. Lin Ke finally saw the real appearance of the arena and finally saw Peng Liyun, who was climbing up step by step. At this moment, he suddenly felt that his opponent was tall and majestic, as if the endless and unfathomable magnificence of nature made people feel small and awestruck, as if they were witnessing a thunderstorm or a starry sky. His body and mind trembled involuntarily. The imposing manner of a sixth-pin fighter was oppressive. This made Lin Ke realize that Peng Liyun, who fought with him in December last year, didn't use his full strength at all. At that time, he was more in the mood of experiencing and experimenting with the competition. No wonder he was the big devil. Lin Ke didn't have a similar skill yet, so he couldn't counterattack. He could only suppress his emotions and guard himself, not moving at all. His eyes were as deep as a lake, and his heart was like the boundless sky carrying meteors. The two of them stood in their predetermined positions. Lu Cheng and Yan Zhika adjusted their sitting postures. The audience held their breaths, and the smell of gunpowder in the final match could be triggered at any moment. The referee checked his watch, raised his right hand, and shouted loudly, "Conversation time starts now." Lin Ke immediately closed his eyes, thinking about something, preparing for something. Peng Liyun slowly lowered his waist and got into a fighting posture. With a smile on his face, he didn't disturb his opponent's thoughts. He had the bearing of a grandmaster. As time passed, everything in the arena seemed to be stagnant. Only Peng Liyun's natural and harmonious movements showed the feeling of reality. I'd like to calculate whether Lin Ke has spoken more than 10 sentences in all the matches he's participated in. Chen Sanxing, who had nothing better to do, began to tease Lin Ke, who was known as Silence is Gold. The host, Lu Cheng, couldn't help but laugh. Isn't that good? Anyway, we can't hear what he says during the conversation time. I'm just casually chatting to ease the tension of the final match, Chen Sanxing explained. Chen Sanxing explained, I've noticed that most of the people who interact with each other on the internet are rather quiet. There are quite a lot of people online, but very few of them are talking. Not to mention them, even I am a bit nervous. The final match, this is the final match. Lu Cheng sighed with emotion. While they were talking to ease the atmosphere, the ticking sound didn't stop, and 3 minutes were about to pass. At this time, Lin Ke opened his eyes. His eyes were dark and deep, as if they were hiding a sky full of stars. Peng Liyun's natural and rhythmic movements slowed down, creating a sense of oppression and suffocation as if a storm was about to come. The referee raised his right hand again and waved it down. His voice shook the whole arena. Begin. The first round began. The first round of the final match of the National University Martial Arts competition began. As soon as the referee finished speaking, Lin Ke suddenly raised his hands and made a gesture in front of him. With the ancient characters in his mind, he said in a low voice, "Okay." He still chose to attack at the beginning of the match without changing his style. "Okay." A subtle and mysterious voice reverberated in the air. Lin Ke's figure leaped out like a scar, snatching the opportunity before Peng Liyun could launch his flash strike. In just a moment, Lin Ke had entered the range of Peng Liyun's attack. Peng Liyun stretched out his left hand and pulled his right arm back. He lowered his body and maintained his previous posture, either because he couldn't dodge in time or because he didn't want to. At this time, Lin Ke felt a tingling sensation all over his body. It seemed that his whole body was about to be attacked. Sizzle. Peng Liyun's figure was slightly distorted in front of him. Sizzle. In the broadcast, faint ripples and a few snowflakes danced in the air, blurring the scene of the battle. This. Chen Sanxing was stunned and blurted out. Peng Liyun has really begun to transform. His root pulp had changed, and the power of thunder and lightning was leaking out. Transformation. Lu Cheng murmured to herself, unable to hide her surprise. Although there were rumors pointing out this possibility, it was still shocking to see it with one's own eyes. Once a person transformed, they would no longer be ordinary. Peng Liyun would definitely get the certificate of 5th pin before the end of his junior year. And with the help of the supernatural power of thunder and lightning, with his original strength, it was not impossible for him to defeat 3 opponents by himself today. Songqing University's risk, Lin Kei's risk, seemed to have failed at the beginning. Peng Liyun was indeed the big devil. Hiss. Lu Qing sucked in a breath of cold air and stood up. Not only him but also Yan Zhika, Kai Zhongming, and the others all stood up. At the most critical moment, Peng Liyun had made another breakthrough. He was the F** King protagonist. I knew it. All-knowing man in ganghood posted these words on Weibo at the right time with a spread-out emoji. His complacency was evident in his words. Superstitious thoughts are not said with a husky emoji. See, this is the heavenly son of the age. In Lu Cheng's fan forum, Unparalleled Dragon King sighed, covering his face. If Peng Liyun defeated 3 opponents by himself because of his breakthrough, then it's because poison can't change one's fate. This is what it means to be favored by luck. While everyone was shocked and lamenting, the situation on the field had changed. Lin Kei's whole body was tingling and numb, as if every inch of his skin was in contact with some static electricity. His absolute reaction appeared. When his senses were in chaos, he suddenly stopped and braked. In the harsh sound of friction, his tendons and muscles trembled and converted the huge kinetic energy into the strength of his right fist. At the same time, he slightly tilted his head and listened to the wind to determine Peng Liyun's movement. Bam! Peng Liyun withdrew and released his qi and blood, and his body immediately swayed forward. Against the intermittent appearance of small silver snakes, the tendons in his arms bulged, and like 9 dragons emerging from the sea, he threw a punch at Lin Kei's waist. Heavenly Punishment Force, an advanced version of Shocking Thunder Force, one of the 2 core forces of the Thunder Sect. Bam! Lin Kei quickly swung his arm and threw out his right fist, as fast as a meteor streaking across the sky. Boom! Fierce air waves suddenly rolled out from where their fists collided, setting off a whistling wind. The little snowflakes and weak ripples on the screen disappeared in an instant. Peng Liyun's body trembled as if he had been hit by a bomb. His muscles and tendons trembled, and his meridians were burning with pain. Lin Kei's right arm hair stood up, and he seemed to hear a sizzling sound in his ears. Half of his body was temporarily paralyzed, and it was difficult for him to exert force or make a move. Details showed the foundation. Peng Liyun was obviously less affected by the shock than Lin Kei's paralysis, so he recovered first and made a force concentration. Half a beat later, Lin Kei also withdrew his qi and blood, force, spirit, and paralysis, and let them condense in his dantian. Boom! With the explosion of his dantian, Peng Liyun turned sideways, stretched his body, and fiercely rushed forward like a thunder giant. Lin Kei was still half a beat slower. He could only follow suit and spurt out his dantian qi, bulging his muscles, and collide head-on with Peng Liyun. Since his senses were affected by the static electricity and he misjudged the enemy's attack, he fell one step behind and kept falling behind. Bam! The muffled sound was so loud that it penetrated the cheers and shouts of the audience. Lin Kei couldn't bear it and his body swayed backward, retreating. Just as he was about to reverse his qi and blood to stabilize his center of gravity, Peng Liyun smoothly and naturally pressed and swung his waist. Like a floating cloud, he suddenly bounced forward and closed in on Lin Quebec Thunder Sect. 36th move, flash attack. As soon as he closed in, the light in Peng Liyun's eyes condensed, so bright that it was like 2 bolts of lightning had broken through the darkness. The visualization in his mind kept changing, and finally fixed on a cyan jade talisman floating in the void. The strokes on it were like lightning, twisting into a ball to form complex characters. Sizzle. Silver flashed, and yin and yang clashed. Thunder Sect, 11th move, simplified physical invulnerability, Peng Liyun's exclusive modification, Thunder Seal. Bam! Peng Liyun's body swelled, and every muscle seemed to be filled with blood. At this moment, he was the thunder god who had descended to the earth. Using his fist as a hammer, he fiercely chopped down to deliver punishment on behalf of God. Zzz. His fist was surrounded by a layer of faintly discernible electric snakes. At this stage, His simplified physical invulnerability was no less inferior than Lu Cheng's. Lin Ke had no time to dodge, so he had to use force concentration to stabilize his body. In the explosion of Dan Qi, his muscles and tendons bulged, and he threw out his left fist like a dragon coiling around his body to block Peng Liyun's attack. Bam! With a deafening sound, the two greenish-black fists were temporarily frozen in the air. Lin Ke's eyes lit up with flashing electric lights. His hair stood up, and smoke seemed to come out of his 7 apertures. His muscles trembled automatically, and he felt paralyzed all over. He stood there like a statue. His mind was desperately directing his actions, but his body didn't cooperate at all. It was difficult for him to complete force concentration. Peng Liyun, who didn't use the explosive power of Dan Force, took a few steps back. Then he stabilized himself and bounced forward naturally. He pounced on Lin Ke, who was still in a state of paralysis. He shook his shoulders and was about to throw out his arms. As expected, Chun Sanqing exclaimed in the live broadcast room. Lin Ke was going to be defeated by Peng Liyun. It wasn't that he didn't work hard enough or that he wasn't strong enough, but that his opponent was too terrifying. In front of the computer screen, Yin Xiaoling covered her eyes with her hands. She didn't dare to watch the next scene, and the upcoming ending. Mu Jinyan clenched her teeth, and her eyes showed unbearable sadness. In the seats of the Songqing University Martial Arts Club, Lu Cheng, Yin Zhika, and the others didn't do anything else. They were all staring at the arena, watching Peng Liyun throw out his arm and hit Lin Ke's temple in slow motion. At this time, even if Lin Ke recovered a little from the paralysis and could perform force concentration, it was too late. Good. All-knowing man in ganghood waved his fist. This is the ending. This is the real definition of the heavenly son of the age. When Lin Ke's paralysis was just relieved, his deep eyes reflected Peng Liyun's fist that was getting bigger and bigger. In his senses, everything around him seemed to be still. Only Peng Liyun and his fist were left in the world. Only thoughts flashed in his mind. In front of the slightly old arena, he was practicing his moves methodically. His father came over and smiled with expectation. Tomorrow is the final match. Under the spotlight, a figure fell out of the arena. His father looked very sad. He stood in front of his seat and held the railing, looking at the scene in confusion. His father's old injury relapsed, and he looked haggard and old. He stood in front of the trophy display window and said to himself helplessly and self-deprecatingly, "I was just short of a national champion." The pungent smell of disinfectant, the monotonous blue and white walls, the doctors and nurses who were rushing to and fro, his father who couldn't speak, his mother who was crying, and himself who was huddling in the corner, looking at the scene in fear. In front of his eyes and ears, the past appeared again. His eyes suddenly became resolute, like a burning flame, without a trace of coldness. At this time, Peng Liyun's fist suddenly slowed down, as if it was in a swamp, as if it was tied with 1,000 pounds of weight. Not only that, his whole body also had the impulse to crawl on the ground. The power of the stars. The power of the earth. Seeing that Peng Liyun finally showed some surprise, Lin Ke clenched his teeth and the muscles in his body wriggled abnormally. During the spring festival, the mutation of my inherited root pulp had already shown signs. According to the normal process and the experience of the predecessors, I will control it and suppress it. I will let it change slowly and naturally so that it won't cause a terrible backlash and cause great harm to the body. After a year and a half, when I have the quality of a top-notch 6th pin, I will release it completely and take advantage of this to overtake others and enter the inhuman stage in one step. But I don't want to wait until then to compete for the championship. There are too many variables in the future. I just want to seize the moment, at all costs. In January last year, Lu Cheng relied on the awakening of his supernatural ability and defeated Yi Yaoting, who was 1 pin higher than him. Today, I want to use this to challenge Peng Liyun. I didn't use it in the semifinals because once I release it, my body may not recover for half a year, and it may even leave behind hidden injuries. I've been waiting for so long for today. Lin Ke's indifferent eyes were covered with a layer of mist, showing rare sadness, but his will was unprecedentedly firm. "Dad, do you see? I'm going to compete for the championship for Songqing University." Bang! He swung his right arm and punched out. His fist brushed the air, igniting a layer of flame, emitting a dazzling light. The meteor really cut through the sky. Jiangnan, Ji family's old house. The lean Ji Jianzhong smashed the mahogany table with his palm and roared in a low voice. Nonsense! When Lin Ke punched out, the invisible binding immediately dissipated. Peng Liyun's eyes flashed again, pulling back his waist and abdomen, his arms in front of his body. Boom! The real explosion was heard. Meteor crash. The impact was violent, and the flames were everywhere. Peng Liyun was knocked back a few steps, but he quickly regained his qi and blood, stabilizing his body. Taking advantage of the completely released terror, Lin Ke was able to control his Dan force at will. He closed in on Peng Liyun with every release of meteor blast. Boom, boom, boom. After making 3 consecutive explosions, Lin Ke stared at Peng Liyun, clenching his teeth and enduring the pain. Bang, bang, bang. In the rolling flames, Peng Liyun made forced concentration. He kept retreating, but it didn't look like he was going to lose. His clothes were burned, and his face was pale. Everyone from Shanbei University looked at each other, as if they were in a dream. The guest commentator, Chen Sansheng, was speechless and forgot to explain to the audience. Lu Cheng and the others were shocked and sad. Lin Ke wanted to continue his attack, but his body shook and he couldn't hold on anymore. The pain of the disintegration of the fine structure came to him. He paused and stood there helplessly, as if he was about to collapse. The referee took the opportunity to announce, Round 1, Peng Liyun wins. As soon as he finished speaking, Geyser appeared in the arena and froze Lin Ke's body. He shook his head and scolded, Nonsense! He walked back with Lin Ke in his arms, covering half the distance in one step. In the silence, Lin Ke didn't say anything. He just looked at Lu Cheng and Yan Zhika who were running toward him. For the first time he smiled a pure smile. I've tried my best. He stared at Lu Cheng with pleading eyes. I'll leave the rest to you. Okay. Lu Cheng nodded vigorously, his blood boiling. After he finished replying, he raised his head to look at the arena. When he saw Peng Liyun's towering figure, his emotions surged and he was unable to restrain himself any longer. He let out a long howl. Ah! The roar came from afar. Lu Cheng quickly approached the arena. His momentum was like the north wind, getting fiercer and fiercer. Leave the rest to me. Chapter 408. What happened just now? It was not until Lin Ke was dragged out of the arena by Geyser that Lu Chang, the host in the live broadcast room, came back to his senses and asked Chen Sansheng, the guest commentator beside him. First, Peng Liyun, who was about to win the match, was strangely sluggish, as if he had become a puppet. This allowed Lin Ke, who was in a dead-end situation, to turn the tables and reverse the situation. Then Lin Ke, who was obviously much weaker than Peng Liyun, crazily suppressed Peng Liyun as if he had cheated. Boom, boom, boom. The waves of fire created a scene of a real explosion. However, this development did not last long. After a few moves, Lin Ke took the initiative to stop, and the referee anxiously announced Peng Liyun's victory. Just a single part of the story was already inconceivable and incomprehensible, let alone when they were combined. It's not that I don't have enough brains, it's just that this world is too amazing. Lu Cheng's words brought Chen Sansheng back to his senses. He calmed himself down and said, It should be Lin Ke's arcana. Awakened arcana? Lu Chang was slightly stunned. He had never seen a direct disciple of a large sect awaken their superpowers in an uncontrollable manner. Yes, look at this. Chen Sansheng pointed at the slow motion shown by the director in time. Peng Liyun didn't freeze there. He just slowed down his movements, as if he was in a quagmire. Chang, what do you think? The power of the earth, one of the characteristics of the combat sect. Lu Chang came to a realization. Lin Ke suddenly awakened his supernatural ability and temporarily restrained Peng Liyun. That was how he managed to escape death. After that, he tried to rely on the burst of power when his supernatural ability was awakened to defeat his opponent. However, Peng Liyun was no ordinary person. He managed to hold his ground in a wretched state. When the burst was over, Lin Ke, who had suffered a strong backlash, naturally couldn't hold on any longer. All of his previous questions had been answered. But he's a disciple of Shushan's study. Didn't his elders teach him how to awaken slowly? Lu Chang was confused. Most people would only lose control when they awaken their arcana. As a former martial artist, Chen Sanxing had collected a lot of information. When he heard that Lin Ke's father used to be a coach at Songqing University, he suddenly felt emotional. Lin Ke must be aware of the consequences of his actions. He also understands that the losses outweigh the gains. But for him, for a martial artist, there are some things that are duty-bound to do. Even if there are tens of thousands of people, he will still press on. Lu Chang was about to say something else when the broadcast switched back to the center of the venue, due to Lu Cheng's arrival. Seeing that Peng Liyun's clothes were full of burn marks, his face was slightly pale, and his muscles were slightly trembling, he was stunned again and blurted out, "Peng Liyun is injured. This is getting interesting." Chen Sanxing raised his eyebrows and sighed. Lin Ke's ignition had really lit up the light of hope for Songqing University. It all depended on whether Lu Cheng could grasp this opportunity and surpass the big demon king. Hearing the host and guest commentator's explanation, Yan Shaoling removed the hand that was covering her eyes. She was a little happy and felt a lump in her throat. She subconsciously turned her head and looked at Mu Jinyan, only to see her roommate sobbing and wiping her face with a tissue. Looking back, there were also many posts in the forum that were full of praises and exclamations. Lin Ke is really giving it his all. Wrote Unparalleled Dragon King. No way. He Xiaowei touched his thick beard and muttered to himself. Do I really have the supernatural power of the toxic healer? He refreshed his Weibo and saw several new comments. Kneel down seriously. I shouldn't have wavered. Old immortal, please accept me. How could he turn this around? I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Covering ears. In the beginning, I only believed that fate was great. But in the end, I was powerless to see clearly that the strong were the toxic healers. In another place in another room, all-knowing man in ganghood took a deep breath and told himself that even if Lu Cheng was injured, he might not be able to defeat Peng Liyun. Even if he could, he would be at his limit and wouldn't be able to defeat Fang Zhirong. In the stands, Empress Dowager Ji Mingyu clenched her right hand and opened it again and again, murmuring, "This guy is really." She repeated the word really several times but still couldn't think of a suitable curse word. RG family has the two bloodlines of willfulness and stubbornness. This is really something Lin Ke would do. Yan Kai heaved a long sigh. He had been influenced by what he saw and heard all year round. Naturally, he knew the price Lin Ke had to pay for what he did just now. He turned his head to look at his wife and released his palm. He patted Ji Mingyu's other shoulder and comforted her. Don't worry. With Coach Shi and Mom and Dad protecting him, there won't be any serious consequences. Who hasn't been reckless and impulsive when they were young? Ji Mingyu sighed and said, with this, his chances of becoming a physical invulnerability expert are reduced by at least half. If Lin Ke could follow the normal process, it would be easy for him to enter the high pin and become an inhuman before the age of 22. He would have enough time and potential to reach the physical invulnerability realm. But now it would take him about a year and a half to recover. At that time, due to the awakening of his supernatural ability and the improvement of his physical fitness, he would be able to reach the 6th pin level very quickly. But it wouldn't be so easy for him to reach the inhuman stage. Yan Kai opened his mouth and wanted to say something, but then he saw the guy who had abducted his little princess standing in front of Peng Liyun. The atmosphere suddenly became tense again. Even the audience who didn't have strong inclinations felt the suffocation of the final match. In the substitutes bench of Songqing University Martial Arts Club, Geyser suppressed the backfire in Lin Ke's body and stabilized his condition. He ordered Li Mao and Kai Zhongming to send him to the emergency room for follow-up treatment. Yan Zhika looked at her cousin whose pale skin was covered with frost. Her eyes were obviously red and her fists were clenched tightly. She wanted to take responsibility for herself. She turned her eyes back to the arena. Her eyes reflected Lu Cheng's tall and straight body. This time, I didn't have time to cheer for you, but my heart is with you. In the seats of Shanbei University Martial Arts Club, Fang Zhirong, Su Wanyan, and the others looked more dignified. They felt something called pressure. For the first time, they felt that the champion of this competition was not so safe. Whether it was good or bad, it all depended on the next round of battle. The long roar was still echoing. It seemed to have condensed into a sound column connecting the 9 heavens. It came from afar and shook people's hearts. Lu Cheng's fighting spirit was burning. His momentum was like a rainbow. He turned into a whistling north wind and rolled into the arena. He stood opposite Peng Liyun at a distance. His blood was surging and his emotions were surging. Hormones were secreted, stimulating his qi and blood to become stronger. His strength and speed seemed to have increased, as if he had been injected with stimulants. Normally, he would follow this momentum and fiercely attack to vent his emotions and completely defeat his opponent. However, Lu Cheng was very clear that Peng Liyun was not an ordinary person. He was the heavenly son of the age, and deserved the title of Big Devil. When facing such an opponent, even if he was injured, he could not take it down in one breath. If he was impatient and reckless, he would seize the opportunity and win in one fell swoop. Of course, he could not give up this feeling of burning, stirring, and this feeling of momentum soaring to the sky. He would lose a certain advantage. Therefore, he had to fight according to his master's words. Mind like fire, heart like ice. Aggression like fire, calm like ice. Well, in Peng Liyun's current state, he would not be able to take 3 internal explosions. While Lu Cheng was pondering, the referee had already raised his right hand. Peng Liyun had also refocused the light in his eyes. It was as if 2 bolts of lightning had leaped out of thin air, illuminating the surroundings and causing Lu Cheng's mind to tremble slightly. With a whoosh, the referee's palm fell and the voice came out. Begin. Crack. Lu Cheng and Peng Liyun moved at the same time. The former burst out his Dan force. His legs thickened and flew out with a momentum like a rainbow. The latter withdrew his qi and blood, lowered his waist and then released it, like a cloud floating forward. Flash attack on his opponent. They both chose to attack at the beginning of the game. This battle had entered the white-hot stage as soon as it started. Both of them pounced at high speed. The distance of 8 or 9 meters disappeared in an instant. They charged at each other, and had no room to adjust. They could only lean sideways, bulge their muscles, and stick to each other. Bang! It was like 2 cars collided in the middle of the arena. The sound was so loud that the air billowed. Lu Cheng and Peng Liyun's bodies seemed to be frozen. The trembling of their muscles, and the bouncing of their large tendons were subtle, but clear. After a moment, they both stepped back and cracked the bluestone with a stomp. Lu Cheng just steadied himself and bent his body forward, his 2 arms hanging naturally. His wrists hooked and shook, shooting out a white cold light that moved close to the ground and a red fireball that penetrated the airflow. Burning ice and flame. With such a short distance and such a tight attack, Peng Liyun didn't even have time to use the astral steps. It seemed that he had no other choice but to take it head-on. At this moment, the light in his eyes grew brighter. His palms glowed silvery white and suddenly clapped in front of him. Boom. This clap was no longer a crisp and short paw. It was like a thunderclap. The sound wave and airflow swept out, instantly destroying the unstable crystal cold light and violent fireball. Lu Cheng's body and mind were shaken, and he was temporarily frightened by the scene of blooming fireworks. B. Peng Liyun opened his palms and pulled out a thin silvery white electric light like a thin blade. Pa! In a flash, the electric light had already cut, in front of Lu Cheng. If he hadn't been affected by the sudden thunder, Lu Cheng would have noticed when Peng Liyun's palms were about to separate. He would have dodged and defended. However, he was half a beat too late. Once the electric light came out, no human could stop it. With a sizzling sound, Lu Cheng's hair stood on end. The clothes on his chest were burnt, revealing his charcoal black skin. Thunder from a clear sky, cloudless thunder saber. In the live broadcast room, Chen Sanxing said in astonishment. He didn't expect that the injured Peng Liyun could seize the initiative so quickly and create a chance for victory. This was the killing move of the Thunder Sect's unique physical invulnerability skill. Of course, Peng Liyun hadn't mastered it, not even simplified it. He had simply imitated its characteristics and created a martial art that was similar to it. While Chen Sanqing was speaking, Peng Liyun's body naturally and smoothly bounced back to Lu Cheng's front. In his mind, he visualized the scene where the green and silver lightning bombarded the ground and ignited a noisy golden fire. As this scene appeared, he seemed to have been hit by the lightning in his qi and blood hub, lower dantian, and buttocks. His body erupted with power beyond what he had ever had before. His arm muscles bulged, and his fist was wrapped in red flames. He punched at Lu Cheng at a burning speed. The 15th move of the Thunder Sect, simplified physical invulnerability, Fiery Thunderbolt. The effect of this move was an explosive increase in strength accompanied by the burning of flames. Peng Liyun didn't master the essence of this move until it began to transform with the help of the supernatural ability. At this time, Lu Cheng had just recovered from the numbness. He had imagined that Peng Liyun would be difficult to deal with, and that he would still have the strength to defeat him, even though he was injured. However, he didn't expect that Peng Liyun would be so powerful and terrifying that he would put himself in danger at the beginning of the fight. His heart was like an ice mirror, reflecting the details. An idea flashed through his mind. He didn't hurry to perform the force concentration, but instead concentrated the cold wave in his body on his right arm. Bam! His shoulder exploded with strength, and he raised his arm to block the fiery thunderbolt. Puff! As soon as Peng Liyun's fist hit Lu Cheng's upper arm, he felt Lu Cheng sinking down and spitting out coldness. Then his qi, blood, force, and spirit all contracted and gathered in the dantian of his lower abdomen. Even his own majestic strength was absorbed, as if he had hit the void. The flames that were supposed to spread inwards were restrained there and extinguished by the ice crystal mist that was released in advance. Lu Cheng was imitating An Chaoyang's wisdom. Relying on the ice mirror to accurately grasp the timing of the opponent's move, he blocked the fiery thunderbolt with the force concentration. Of course, the two situations were different. The moves they were facing were different, so the order of the details was also different. And Chaoyang was afraid that his mind would be frozen by severe warning. Hence, he had to retract his spirit at the right time to avoid this. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, was worried that the burning sensation would invade his body and cause internal injuries. Hence, he had to spurt out frost in advance to counteract it. At this moment, all the feelings were still in his dantian. The balance was broken, and the turbulent waves rushed to his left arm. Lu Cheng visualized the thundercloud tremor in time. He shook his shoulder, tightened his muscles, and punched his left fist from top to bottom towards Peng Liyun. The first move of the Thunder Roar Zen. Before Peng Liyun's fiery thunderbolt was completed, he already knew that it was not good. He had already retracted his qi and blood, and followed up with an explosion. He swung his right arm backward and drew an arc upward. Bam! As soon as his arm came into contact with Lu Cheng's fist, he felt a force that was much stronger than his own and a shockwave that expanded rapidly. His body jumped involuntarily, and his muscles and tendons were immediately shaken. This was compounded with the internal injuries of the meteor burst. Crack! The force went straight up and down. Peng Liyun's feet sank into the ground, and he couldn't take a step back to dissipate the force. Lu Cheng borrowed the strength of his opponent to stop Peng Liyun in one move. He immediately took the time to adjust his muscles, and visualized a heavy and scorching red sun. The flames gathered and condensed into a ball that was about to explode. A deity with a human head and a beast body stepped out of the void and suppressed everything. Fire Sect, simplified physical invulnerability, internal explosion. Lu Cheng was about to raise his right arm and deliver a critical blow when he felt a sharp pain in the spot where he blocked Peng Liyun's fiery thunderbolt. The pain went straight to his brain. It was indeed too risky to resolve a simplified physical invulnerability with force concentration. Moreover, fiery thunderbolt was known for its explosive force. Although I managed to dissipate and borrow part of the force, the remaining force still hurt my muscles, tendons, and bones, which affected my force. He suddenly realized. He even suspected that his right arm was slightly fractured. Damn it, I can't let go of this opportunity. Lu Cheng thought of his brother-in-law's pure smile and sincere request, and Ku's expectation and sadness. He clenched his teeth and endured the pain. He swung his right arm and punched Peng Liyun's lower abdomen. Peng Liyun knew what was going to happen as soon as his feet sank into the bluestone. His eyes were unwavering. He immediately withdrew his force to heal his injury and completed double explosion. Bam! He opened his left hand and pressed down rapidly, half pushing and half pushing. Boom! It was as if there was a ticking time bomb in his body that exploded. It shook his internal organs and churned his qi, blood, and body fluids. The previous injury reappeared and became more serious. Peng Liyun took a deep breath and made the third force concentration in a row. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, lost his center of gravity due to the explosion of his Dan force and fell backward. He took 2 steps forward and retracted his qi and blood to stabilize his body. He used the rebound force from the soles of his feet to pounce forward. Bam! He swung his fist fiercely to the side and hit his opponent's temple. Peng Liyun remained calm and unhurried. He followed the momentum of the Dan force and raised his shoulder and arm to block in time. Bam! Lu Cheng's joints cracked and his tendons stretched. His 5 fingers shot out and poked at his opponent's head. That wasn't the end of it. Each of his fingers shot out a faint glittering light. It was as beautiful as a dream, like an arrow or a needle. The 21st move of the ice sect, Aurora. Peng Liyun's scalp went numb in an instant. He felt a stinging pain in his temple and quickly moved to the side. He used the tortoise withdraws its head to dodge the deadly Aurora by a hair's breadth. Lu Cheng wouldn't let this go. He visualized the giant crimson sun and was about to use his left fist to make another internal explosion. At this moment, a turbine appeared in Peng Liyun's body and spun rapidly. His body was surrounded by faint electric sparks. A strong repulsive force hit him. Lu Cheng, who was about to use the simplified physical invulnerability move, was pushed back a meter. Peng Liyun immediately rushed forward. The visualization in his mind kept changing until it was fixed on a green jade talisman, suspended in the void. The words on it were complicated and looked like they were made of lightning. Bzzz, bzz, bzz. Yin and yang collided and a silver light flashed. Bam! Peng Liyun raised his arms high and his body expanded. He turned into a deity that punished on behalf of the heavens. He slammed his fist down hard. The simplified physical invulnerability move of the Thunder Sect, Thunder Seal. Lu Cheng dispersed his force and quickly used the Dan concentration. He clenched his fist and answered firmly. Bam! His hair stood on end again. There seemed to be smoke coming out of it. His body was completely paralyzed and he couldn't even stand straight. Peng Liyun, on the other hand, was pushed back 2 steps by the explosive force of the Dan stage. These 2 steps gave Lu Cheng a chance to catch his breath. He used force concentration to get rid of the influence. Peng Liyun also made a series of explosions. He swung his arms and attacked crazily like lightning. Bam! 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 This was like another version of the machine punch. It was slower and more powerful. It was a perfect combination with the explosive force of the Dan stage. Lu Cheng didn't have time to use the force. He could only brace himself and use the ice mirror to block the attacks. Bam! 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 This match. Chen Sancheng finally had the time to comment. It's a little tragic. Yes, it wasn't beautiful, it wasn't wonderful, it was tragic. Lu Cheng and Peng Liyun were always able to create opportunities when their opponent was connecting moves. Therefore, the situation of a simplified physical invulnerability against a simplified physical invulnerability had never happened. They were both fighting with the explosive force of the Dan stage. It was quite tragic. This also showed that they were evenly matched and in a stalemate. Maybe this is the only way to defeat the Demon King Peng Liyun. Lu Cheng agreed. Bam! 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 After making 9 consecutive explosions, Peng Liyun took the initiative to change. He grasped the pulse of the rhythm and suddenly stopped his attacks. He took a deep breath. Bam! 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 Another turbine was running crazily in his body. A strange suction force appeared under the silvery white electric light. Lu Cheng, who was attacking his opponent with Tremor Punch, was caught off guard and fell forward. In terms of fighting skills, Peng Liyun, who had been practicing for many years, was definitely better than him. Opportunity. Peng Liyun didn't use the simplified physical invulnerability. He didn't use the Dan concentration or the simplified physical invulnerability. He straightened his right arm, turned it into a whip, and lashed at his opponent's neck. The fist in front of Lu Cheng's eyes was getting bigger and bigger. It seemed that Lu Cheng only had two choices. He could either give up his stance and roll on the ground to avoid the attack, or he could stabilize his body to avoid the attack. Of course, Peng Liyun's follow-up attack would be a series of attacks. Neither of these options could turn the situation around. Lu Cheng's eyes remained unchanged. He stabilized his center of gravity and moved an inch to the right, giving his shoulder to Peng Liyun. "It's over," Chen Sanqing murmured. Crack. Peng Liyun's whip cracked. However, it wasn't Lu Cheng's bones that were broken. It was a layer of ice crystals that had formed at some point. The 15th move of the Ice Sect, Ice Armor. This move was the application of supernatural ability. Lu Cheng mastered it very quickly. He had mastered it in a few days in March. Although it couldn't withstand the simplified physical invulnerability and the explosion of the Dan stage, it was still useful for ordinary moves. In a battle between mighty ones, one wrong move would result in a counterattack. Without thinking, Peng Liyun retracted his qi and blood to guard against the killer move. Lu Cheng wouldn't let go of this opportunity. He had been visualizing the giant red sun and fire god Zhurong when he moved his body to the right. At this moment, he stretched his body and endured the pain in his right arm. He guided the compressed fireball into his fist and punched it out. The simplified physical invulnerability of the fire sect, internal explosion. The second punch. Boom. Although Peng Liyun punched down in time and forced his enemy to retreat with the explosion of the Dan stage, his body was attacked again. It was as if a sea of fire had ignited inside his body, making him extremely uncomfortable and almost vomiting blood. However, his willpower was just as strong. With a return hug, he barely managed to suppress his wounds and counterattacked with a flash strike. Lu Cheng defended himself with the explosion of the Dan stage and didn't move at all. He planned to use the Thunder Roar Zen to completely destroy his enemy's injury, just like how he dealt with Ren Li. However, in the previous collisions, Peng Liyun had sensed that Lu Cheng's right arm was injured and his moves were flawed. He adjusted his footwork and kept attacking his right side, forcing Lu Cheng to block with his right fist. The pain in his bones and fascia was getting more and more obvious. Bang! 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 The sound of the thunder roars then echoed. Peng Liyun kept withdrawing and spurting his Dan force, and withstood the attack with 10 consecutive explosions. Lu Cheng's forehead was covered with cold sweat, and it was getting more and more difficult for him to lift his right arm. He clenched his teeth and stimulated himself with the pain. In the next round of attacks from his enemy, he suddenly stretched out his right hand and opened his 5 fingers. He didn't block but grabbed in the opposite direction. It's time. Crack. Lu Cheng heard the sound of bones cracking. He also grabbed Peng Liyun's fist. The veins on the back of his hand and fingers were bulging, as if they were supported by dragons. However, he didn't use his strength. He just directly poured the frost current in his body into Peng Liyun. All of a sudden, Peng Liyun was stiff, but he quickly recovered. He didn't fight back with the supernatural ability of thunder and lightning, but just withdrew his qi and blood. Once the Dan force was formed, it immediately exploded and pushed his body back to avoid the following attacks from Lu Cheng. He wouldn't be able to withstand the third internal explosion. However, Lu Cheng didn't directly use the simplified physical invulnerability as he expected. Instead, he followed with force concentration to overcome the pain in his injury. His legs thickened and cracked the ground. His body soared into the air and chased after his opponent. Then he quickly raised his hands and made a gesture. He visualized the ancient characters in his mind and said in a low voice, "Army." Peng Liyun, who had just made a counterattack, suddenly froze. His body seemed to have reached its limit, and there were knives and swords on his neck. Under normal circumstances, he could control his panic in time and visualize Thunder God to suppress the evil and counterattack. But now, his spirit was shaken and he temporarily lost his composure because of the stacked internal injuries. Now is the time. Lu Cheng was full of fighting spirit. He visualized the heavy red sun again, and condensed the violent flames. In the void, Zhu Rong stepped out on the fire dragon and suppressed everything that was about to explode. Bam! Lu Qing stared at Peng Liyun, and his body expanded. He shook his left arm and punched his opponent between the chest and abdomen. The third blow of internal explosion. Peng Liyun barely recovered. He raised his arms in front of his body. Boom! His vision was completely red, which was the result of his capillaries bursting. His mind was buzzing nonstop, and he had lost all sense of his body and the outside world. Lu Qing took a step forward and endured the pain. He stopped his right fist at Peng Liyun's throat. The referee raised his right hand and announced loudly, "Lu Qing wins the second round." Lu Qing won the second round. Hearing this, Lu Qing finally relaxed. He took a deep breath and felt that this was the toughest battle of his life. Peng Liyun calmed down a little. When he was about to speak, he spat out a mouthful of blood and fell to the ground. The great demon king had fallen. Chapter 409. Bam! Bam! Along with Peng Liyun's blood, for teeth as white as jade fell to the ground. They rolled a few times to the side, but before they came to a stop, they were lifted up by the big devil's body that had fallen to the ground. All this was like the slow motion at the end of a movie, reflected in Lu Qing's eyes frame by frame, making him feel like he was in a dream. He had truly defeated the Great Demon King, even if it was an injured Great Demon King. Recalling the whole process, every minute and every second was full of danger. If Lin Ke hadn't injured Peng Liyun, he might have been defeated. At most, he would have caused some trouble for Peng Liyun. As for now, this was the first time Peng Liyun had fallen to the ground since they started fighting in the arena. In the previous 3 or 4 years, he had lost a few rounds of tag team battles, but he had always maintained a good image. He had never been so embarrassed before. Phew! Lu Qing exhaled a mouthful of turbid air. He was glad that he hadn't been overwhelmed by the tough battle just now, but also excited that he had finally defeated the seemingly invincible big devil. Although Peng Liyun had been injured in advance, he had begun to transform. The two cancelled each other out, and Lu Qing had won with a clear conscience. Not to mention, this was the result of his brother-in-law's desperate efforts. At this moment, Lu Qing's emotions were surging. He couldn't wait to roar again to express his joy and excitement, but he didn't do so. Instead, he integrated the venting into his own aura. He turned his body sideways and suddenly looked at the freckled Fang Zhirong in the Shanbei University Martial Arts Club seating area. Fang Zhirong felt that Lu Qing's eyes were shining brightly, making him feel like he was looking at the scorching sun at noon. He couldn't help but narrow his eyes. At the same time, he heard an illusory whistling sound echoing in his ears, as if a hurricane was about to blow. His body trembling slightly, Fang Zhirong came to a clear realization in an instant. After the battle just now, Lu Qing's aura was soaring to the sky. If he had consumed too much energy or suffered heavy injuries, then no matter how strong his momentum was, it would only be a decoration and wouldn't affect the overall situation. But now, it was obvious that the outcome had been decided before they reached their limits. With Lu Qing's abnormal stamina, it wasn't impossible for him to fight another fierce battle. Under such circumstances, momentum was very important. Fang Zhirong took a deep breath to calm his excitement and physical reaction. He suddenly stood up and walked to the stone steps without looking at anyone. This is the first time I've seen Peng Liyun in such a sorry state. The host Lu Chang sighed. That's right. The fight was too intense. The guest commentator, Chen Sansheng, was scribbling on a piece of paper with a pen in his hand. I didn't expect Peng Liyun to be so difficult to deal with when he was injured, nor did I expect Lu Qing to hold on until the dawn appeared. His willpower and timing are indeed extraordinary. Of course, I can also see that compared to Peng Liyun, who has been practicing martial arts for many years, Lu Qing's foundation is still shallow. This doesn't refer to the martial arts moves he has learned, but to the proper application of them and the change of rhythm in a fierce battle. That's right. Otherwise it wouldn't be so tragic. Lu Chang nodded and smiled. However, Lu Qing is a very talented martial artist. His performance on the spot is always surprising. After going through such a battle of the highest level below the inhuman stage, I believe he will soon be able to solidify his foundation. Hearing this, Chen Sanqing nodded and sighed. That's why Peng Liyun lost so miserably. Lin Kei's determination and courage, and Lu Cheng's willpower and strength. The combination of the two will definitely create a miracle. He didn't say it clearly, but his meaning was expressed. Well, Peng Liyun is being helped out of the arena. Sanqing, how badly do you think he is injured? Can you make a simple prediction of the battle between Lu Cheng and Fang Zhirong? Lu Chang asked quickly. Chen Sanqing thought for a while and said, Peng Liyun should have been hit by 3 internal explosions and a dozen tremor punches. His body is also injured by Lin Kei's explosion. If it were before, even if he didn't die, he would have been seriously injured and would have to lie in bed for at least a few months. Of course, if it were before, he wouldn't have been defeated by the 3rd internal explosion, so the battle would have ended long ago and his injuries wouldn't be so serious. But now he has begun to transform and his body's ability to bear more energy has increased. Lu Cheng consumes a lot of energy, but he is known as a freak in this aspect, so he can't be judged by common sense. I think he should still have the strength to fight with a normal 7th pin fighter. The problem is, Chang, have you noticed that Lu Cheng's right arm is obviously injured? And the injury has worsened a lot in the last 2 or 3 blows. It can be considered to be temporarily disabled. At most, he can barely move it. Lu Chang nodded and said, I noticed that Peng Liyun was aiming at this point. Unfortunately, he didn't last long. Hee, Lu Cheng is holding back one of his arms. So here comes Fang Zhirong's chance. In the 3rd round, let's split it 6-4. He gets 6 and Lu Cheng gets 4. Chen Sanqing couldn't help but add. And if Lu Cheng can beat Fang Zhirong, Songqing University will definitely win the championship. As long as he can move in the last round, even if he can't make the explosion of Dan's stage, he can still beat Su Wanyan. No way. Even if Su Wanyan doesn't use the Corvine mouth, he is still a professional 9th pin fighter. Lu Chang retorted in disbelief. Chen Sanqing laughed and said, It depends on who he is fighting. Without the Corvine mouth, Lu Cheng can find an opportunity to use the army formula. I don't believe Su Wanyan can be immune to it. The gap between their ranks is too big, Lu Cheng has too many tricks up his sleeve, and Su Wanyan's strength is restrained. These are all objective facts. Su Wanyan is doomed to have a hard time facing Lu Cheng, unless Lu Cheng's right arm is injured again, and he can't even make the hand gesture. No, even if that's the case, with his momentum of defeating the Big Devil after 2 consecutive victories, Su Wanyan will be scared to death. So Su Wanyan is really miserable. But if Lu Cheng is close to his limit, will his supernatural ability of rebounding curse be weakened? Lu Cheng asked doubtfully. The supernatural ability came from the mutation of the root pulp, from the subtle structure of the body, and was closely related to the state of the body. It's possible. But does Su Wanyan dare to take the risk? Chen Sanqing murmured. Hearing the director's prompt, he sat up straight and said, No matter what, as long as Lu Cheng can hold on until Su Wanyan comes on the stage, he will have a good chance of winning. To a large extent, the champion of this competition will be decided by the next round. The game is about to start. Let's wait and see. Will Lu Cheng continue to work hard and complete the 1-2 victory? Or will Fang Zhirong seize the opportunity of Lu Cheng's injury to stabilize the situation and help Shanbei win the championship for the 3rd time in a row? It's really not easy. In Lu Cheng's fan forum, Wonton Seller appeared and expressed her feelings. In the previous battle, she had sweated profusely. Her heart had been raised and lowered and raised again. Unparalleled Dragon King replied in a funny way. Why else would he be called the Big Devil? I thought Lu Cheng would lose just now. Wow, I almost spilled my cup, Brahmin said. It's really not easy for our idol. Defeat the Big Devil and marry the Flying Sky Cup. Don't get too excited. He hasn't won yet. Lu Cheng's right arm is useless now. It's still not certain if he can defeat Fang Zhirong. Unparalleled Dragon King poured cold water on them. God is more fond of tragedies. Don't you think it's more impressive that a hot-blooded teenager who fought to his last breath, but fell at the last step? I'm more impressed that you became a eunuch. Eternal Nightfall, Yen Shaoling said. She was nervous again, and felt that she couldn't breathe properly. They had fought so hard to this point. Don't fall at the door of success. The girls forgot to show off on Weibo and started to pray and make wishes silently. Okamoto's fan and others started to flood the forum with the same 2 words. Breakthrough. 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 Holy sh*t. The great demon king was healed to death by you. Such replies appeared under He Xiaowei's Weibo. They lined up neatly. Am I really that strong? He Xiaowei touched his thick beard again and clicked on the section where he changed his nickname. He hesitated and decided not to believe it, so he posted again. I don't believe that Lu Qing can defeat Fang Zhirong with only one arm. Shanbei can still win the championship in the end. As soon as this post was refreshed, the replies increased rapidly. Damn, you won't give up until you kill Shanbei. I won't help the old lady, I'll give it to you. Be careful that Shanbei will hire someone to destroy your arm. What kind of deep hatred is this? Tell me, did Lu Qing give you a good time? All-knowing man in ganghood also saw this post and felt like he was hit by a stick. He wished he could become a moderator and ban this toxic healer. When Peng Liyun lost the match, his heart skipped a beat, and he almost fell down with him. It was not easy for him to calm down with the excuse of Lu Cheng's arm is injured and Fang Zhirong is in his prime. But now he saw such a thing. When it rains, it pours. In the seats of Songqing University Martial Arts Club, seeing Lu Cheng's right arm move slow, Yinjika couldn't hide her heartache and bit her lip. Not only was Lu Qing injured, but he also had to fight again in this injured state. Suddenly, she recalled Lu Cheng's previous injury. She recalled how he showed off that he could pick up food with his left hand. She recalled his dazed expression when he made a fool of himself. She recalled how she had fed him shyly. She recalled all the bits and pieces related to him. Inexplicably, Yinjika felt sweet. She couldn't help but smile, and her nervousness and uneasiness faded a little. No. I have to be serious and solemn at this time. How can I smile? She quickly put on a serious face, put her hands together and covered her mouth, and prayed seriously. At this time, Lu Qing also thought of this past. If he wanted to enjoy this kind of sweetness in the next stage of recovery, he couldn't leave with regrets. Well, to reduce the effect of paralysis, without the Jindan, I still have the strength of 4 or 5 explosions. With the Jindan, I can do 7 or 8 explosions. I'm better than Fang Zhirong in this aspect. Since there's a chance to win, I'll seize it. Lu Qing gathered his thoughts and raised his head to look at Fang Zhirong, who was standing opposite him. He heard the cheers of the audience, which had finally recovered from their shock. At this time, the referee raised his right hand. The battle to determine the champion was about to start. The referee waved his arm. Start. Chapter 410. Begin. The old and deep voice echoed in every corner of the martial arts arena. All the spectators stopped cheering and shouting, and focused on the arena. The champion of this year's National University Martial Arts Competition would be decided. Bernhard, who was helping Peng Liyun to the emergency room with Mao Qingjun, was stunned for a moment. He couldn't help but look back. At this moment, he suddenly heard a sizzling sound. His body was penetrated by a silvery current, and his hair stood on end. The feeling of numbness disappeared in a flash. Bernhard turned his head and looked at Peng Liyun innocently. On the other side, Mao Qingjuan's muscles were also trembling. Apparently, he was also shocked by the current. Peng Liyun coughed and said, I'm sorry. My emotions are fluctuating. His internal injuries were already serious. Now that his emotions were fluctuating, it was inevitable that his supernatural ability of thunder and lightning would be temporarily out of control. It's okay. We are also worried about the competition. Mao Qingjun understood Peng Liyun's feelings when he heard the word begin. Bernhard listened to their conversation, but there was only one thought echoing in his mind. I'm really struck by lightning. Begin. Before the referee's voice died away, Lu Qing had already raised his hands and made a gesture in front of his lower abdomen. Then he outlined the ancient words in his mind. His abdomen wriggled and he opened his throat and said in a low voice, Okay. The black-edged white figure flashed and broke through the airflow barrier with a bang. He pounced on Fang Zhirong in a teleportation posture. Feng Zhirong had expected this. He knew that Lu Cheng, with his overwhelming momentum, would attack first at the start of the match to take advantage of his advantage and suppress his spirit. Therefore he arched his back and bent down. Like a wolf or a snake, he moved to the side in time to avoid the attack and started a guerrilla fight. His body movements were unpredictable. His bent body covered the light and created a black shadow on the ground. The shadow twisted and wriggled with his strange movements. It was normal, but it made the onlooker's scalp tingle. The dark sex kung fu was naturally frightening. Lu Qing transformed into the north wind and chased after him. His footwork had the characteristics of both speed and agility. Little by little, he shortened the distance between them. Because he improved too quickly, he needed to master too many new things. His footwork was only at the initial level, not to mention Run Li's level. Not enough time to settle down. A few minutes later, Feng Zhirong, who felt that Lu Cheng was already exhausted, suddenly turned around and launched a counterattack, attacking the right side of Lu Cheng's arm where his arm was injured. Pa! He tightened his thighs and lifted his knee. His right foot was not high from the ground, so he directly stepped on Lu Cheng's foot. At the same time, his shoulder exploded with strength. His left arm shook out and his fist rushed up. Along with the momentum of the stomp, he smashed his opponent's right arm. Stomp on the ground and beat on the top. Stab in the back. Feng Zhirong was taking advantage of the fact that Lu Cheng's right arm was injured and could not move freely. Furthermore, he knew that Lu Cheng could form an ice armor for defense, so he was prepared to follow up with a follow-up attack. After breaking the crystal with one punch, he immediately flicked his 5 fingers and secretly attacked Lu Cheng's heart. This move was called Green Bamboo Snake's Mouth, Wasp's Tail Needle. However, just as his right foot was about to step out, Lu Cheng seemed to have telepathy. He straightened his back and turned to the right, just in time to avoid the stomp and collapse. With the success of the ice mirror, Feng Zhirong's attempt had nowhere to hide within a radius of a few centimeters. Without it, Lu Cheng would not have been able to withstand Peng Liyun's chain thunder strikes. Dodging wasn't the end. His hands were already forming a seal, and ancient words had already appeared in his mind. Lu Cheng's previous pounce was a deliberate gesture. He was waiting for Feng Zhirong's counterattack after his momentum was exhausted. He was waiting for the ice mirror to accurately dodge and launch a sound attack in time. Not good. Seeing Lu Cheng's posture, Feng Zhirong's heart skipped a beat. He no longer had time to use the Green Bamboo Snake's Mouth, Wasp's Tail Needle transformation, and quickly visualized. A dark light flashed in his eyes. The green light was frightening, as though he had transformed into a poisonous king snake with a swollen neck and extended tongue. The dark sect's secret technique of the spirit and aura, nightmare. Army, the mysterious ancient voice reverberated. The murderous aura of a battle-hardened soldier invaded Feng Zhirong's heart, making him tremble. His courage dissipated, and his body became sluggish. Lu Cheng's willpower was strong, and he was no stranger to the secret techniques of the dark sect. After a short period of trembling, he calmed down a little and visualized the forwarding formula. He didn't try to completely restore the sound, but only used it to suppress it. Seizing the fleeting opportunity, he slid forward and used his left fist as a punch to his chest. The stinging pain jolted Feng Zhirong awake. He didn't have time to think about anything else. He forced himself to perform a force concentration, and with the contraction of his chi, blood, force, and spirit, he curled his body into a squatting meatball on the ground, narrowly avoiding Lu Cheng's mountain-splitting hammer. A squat followed by a spring. Feng Zhirong's Dan force erupted and shot out like a cannonball, fiercely crashing into Lu Cheng's waist. However, just as his fist missed, Lu Cheng had already skillfully redirected his chi and blood to his lower abdomen. Bam! His muscles swelled, and his right leg tightened into a whip. With a snap, he lashed out at Feng Zhirong's raised arm. Bam! With a muffled sound, Feng Zhirong, who had no place to exert his strength in midair, was sent flying like a football. Lu Cheng took a deep breath and made another burst. He pushed off with his feet and swept across the ground with a crack, chasing after his opponent like a bomber. Feng Zhirong had just steadied himself when he saw his opponent closing in on him. He retracted his chi and blood, The muscles on his left arm swelled, and his fist shot out like lightning. Snow collapsed triple explosion. Feng Zhirong was at a disadvantage everywhere. He felt that his opponent had seen through every move in advance. He didn't dare to be careless and quickly visualized, making the turbines in his body start to spin crazily and pressurize each other. Bam! Every muscle in his body was filled with blood, and his body became taller. His right fist rushed forward with the force of 1,000 kilograms. Magnet sect, rotation of 2 poles, magnetic rotation. Bam! The air billowed, and their fists showed blue and black veins. Their muscles swelled again in an instant. After a moment, Lu Cheng's body trembled as he integrated the 24 blizzard strikes into force concentration. Once again he retracted his qi, blood, spirit, and other senses. Faced with such a situation, Feng Zhirong had no choice but to follow suit and make an explosion of Dan force to avoid being swallowed by the brutal blizzard. Bam! Lu Cheng's right leg muscles swelled and his instep tightened. Quadruple explosion. Bam! Feng Zhirong was forced to counterattack with a whip kick. Bam! Lu Cheng's legs made a muffled sound. Relying on his current strength, he stepped on the ground with his toes turned sideways and made another burst, fiercely crashing into his opponent. His attack was so terrifying that it seemed to be suppressing Feng Zhirong to the point of collapse. Feng Zhirong had to counterattack with double explosion. His body swelled, his feet pushed inward, and his body leaned forward. Bam! The sound of the collision was deep and loud. Feng Zhirong swayed back and took a step back. His scalp went numb, and he quickly retracted his qi and blood. While stabilizing his body, he kept the possibility of defense. Lu Cheng was like a never-ending blizzard. He retracted his qi and blood and immediately exploded it. With the quintuple explosion, he rushed forward with his right leg and kicked his knee. Bam! Feet to feet, the 2 pairs of martial arts shoes turned into butterflies fluttering in the air. At this point, Feng Zhirong knew that he couldn't continue like this. He used poison to train his strength, and his physical strength was weaker than his peers. Although he was known as a weak 7th pin fighter, he could only complete quintuple explosion. Lu Cheng, on the other hand, seemed to be able to make 6, 7, or 8 consecutive explosions. If they were to compete, he would be in a hopeless situation. Unknowingly, he was suppressed by Lu Cheng's momentum, and his spirit was affected. Fight! Feng Zhirong gritted his teeth and returned to the tiptoe. He made the first force concentration for the 4th time in a row. Following that, he stretched out his left palm and opened his 5 fingers. The veins on his arm bulged as he grabbed Lu Cheng's right arm. Moreover, each of his fingers glowed with a faint inky light, making people feel dizzy, as if they had smelled something fishy. Dark sect, dark poison force. Normally speaking, the combination of force and Dan stage explosion was a big move that could only be completed after reaching the inhuman stage. However, Feng Zhirong's poison was stored in his body and his fingers. As long as he wasn't afraid of the backlash, he could barely use it together with Dan stage explosion. At the critical moment, he used a killer move that would kill 1,000 of the enemy but hurt 500 of the self in order to turn the situation around. Bam! Just as Feng Zhirong's left palm struck out, he suddenly felt that something was wrong. The rhythm of Lu Cheng's brutal blizzard had slowed down for a moment. It was because of this delay that Lu Cheng didn't make another consecutive explosion. Instead, he raised his hands again and formed a seal. Through the reaction of the ice mirror, he had predicted where Feng Zhirong's desperate move was going to be. He planned to make a seemingly risky response. Crack! Feng Zhirong was shocked. His fingers had already broken through the layer of ice covering Lu Cheng's right arm. He tore his sleeve and directly injected the dark poison force into Lu Cheng's body. Lu Cheng's body was weak and his mind was exhausted. However, at the same time, he said in a low voice with a solemn expression, "Army!" The qi of bloody devilish blood invaded his mind. Feng Zhirong instantly lost his mind and trembled as if he was surrounded. Once the dark poison force entered, Lu Cheng's internal injuries caused by the thunderbolt were triggered. His body and mind were rapidly weakening, and the number of Dan stage outbursts was reduced. He forced himself to make one last force concentration. He reduced the influence in all aspects and turned them into Dan force that gushed into his left arm. Bam! In such a short distance, his fist was as fast as lightning. Before Fang Zhirong could recover a little, his fist hovered above his throat. The referee raised his right hand and announced loudly, "Lu Qing wins the third round." In this round, although Lu Qing had fought fiercely and was almost at his limit, and the injury on his right arm had worsened, with the help of the ice mirror and the change of rhythm that he had stolen from Peng Liyun, the entire battle was under his control. He didn't give Fang Zhirong any room to perform. His newly learned moves of the Plague Sect, Dark Sect, and Magnet Sect were all useless. This was the so-called suppression of a higher realm. His body and mind were at ease, and his fighting spirit was soaring. Lu Qing couldn't hold it in anymore, and let out another long roar, as if in response to the previous roar. "Yes, I did it." In the long roar, he turned his head and looked at the seats of the Shanbei University Martial Arts Club. He was looking at Su Wanyan. When Su Wanyan met Lu Cheng's eyes, he inexplicably shivered, just like every time he urinated. Next. Chapter 411. Round 4. Lu Qing wins. The final result, Songqing University Martial Arts Club wins. When the referee announced the first word, Li Mao, Sun Jian, and the others rushed to the arena excitedly, shouting "Yaya" without any scruples. If Lu Qing had defeated Peng Liyun or Fang Zhirong in the last round, most of them would not have reacted so quickly. They would not have believed it, and would have been too surprised to believe it. However, after going through 2 tough battles, and their opponent was Su Wanyan, whose supernatural ability was completely restrained by Lu Qing, they were already full of expectations. They were waiting for the moment when the referee announced the result. Champion! Champion! In the cheers of the audience, Yin Zhika, who was the strongest among the substitutes, rushed to the arena like a nimble deer and hugged Lu Qing. At this moment, she could no longer suppress her surging emotions. In front of the audience and the fans watching the match, she openly showed her affection. "Who cares? Anyway, my dad knows it." During this process, she was so excited that she forgot herself and carefully avoided touching her boyfriend's injured right arm. Compared to his companions, who were mentally prepared, Lu Qing was more absent-minded. He had reached his limit in all aspects, so he was quite confident that he could defeat Su Wanyan. Although he was confident, he was not certain. The worst-case scenario was to create a sure-win condition for Little Fairy to enter the arena. Suddenly winning was like a dream. It wasn't until a soft and hot body with a familiar and charming fragrance fell into his arms that he woke up from his dream. Rolling with joy, he asked the girl with an uncertain tone, "What's wrong with you? Are we the champion?" "Yes." Yenjika nodded vigorously, her eyes shining brightly. "We are the champion." Looking at her boyfriend, who could not hide his tiredness in ecstasy and smelling the obvious sweat on his body, she did not feel dirty or disgusted. Instead, she thought Qing was really handsome now. Feeling excited, she opened her pink lips and was about to stand on tiptoe to give Lu Qing a deep kiss in front of the audience. When Lu Qing regained his senses, he felt his emotions explode like a bomb. Unable to restrain himself any longer, he lowered his head, intending to fiercely kiss his little fairy and share his inner feelings with her while helping each other in need. Just as their eyes met and they were about to lose control of their kiss, Kai Zongming and the rest rushed over and surrounded Lu Qing. Some hugged his waist, some lifted his legs, and some grabbed his shoulders. "Champion!" They cheered and threw Lu Qing into the air before catching him firmly. "Champion!" The celebration ceremony was still going on. Yenjika took a step back and unconsciously touched her pink lips with her right hand. She was both surprised by her loss of control and regretful that it was interrupted by her teammates. Flying in the air, Lu Qing turned his head and looked at the beautiful Cuckoo. He gave her a happy yet helpless look, expressing his regret. When their eyes met, Yenjika giggled like 100 blooming flowers. Then she thought of something and hurriedly and worriedly reminded him. "His hand is injured. Be careful, be careful. Champion, champion." In the stands, Yen Kai listened to the enthusiastic shouts and witnessed the excitement of his daughter and the Songqing University Martial Arts Club members. He took a deep breath and gave a neutral comment while recalling Lu Cheng's previous performance. His willpower is good and his strength is strong. Ji Mingyu had sharp ears and eyes. She chuckled and said, "My daughter's taste isn't bad. When they first started dating, I didn't expect Xiao Lu to grow to this level so quickly." "Ah, what did you say? I can't hear you." In the deafening noise, Yan Kai, who was not very strong and had no supernatural ability, turned his head and asked in confusion. Ji Mingyu couldn't help but laugh. She glanced at her dumb husband and didn't want to repeat herself. She grabbed his hand and swung it up, shouting loudly, "Champion! Champion!" In this kind of scene, it would be very incongruous to have a refined appearance. Occasionally indulging like this is good for health. Driven by his wife, Yan Kai gradually blended into the surrounding atmosphere and temporarily gave up his usual elegance. However, there was still something in his heart that worried him. Lu Qing was young and had a promising future. Would he be tempted to indulge in debauchery and indulge in debauchery? There were too many similar examples to mention. As a father, he would worry if his daughter's boyfriend was not good enough. He would also worry if her boyfriend was good enough. He couldn't stop worrying. The fourth round, Lu Qing wins. The final result, Songqing University Martial Arts Club wins. In the emergency room, Lin Kei, who was tied with many instruments, suddenly exhaled when he heard the doctor's report. His tight body relaxed and his tightly clenched fists stretched out. He closed his eyes and a manly middle-aged man seemed to appear in front of him. "Dad, I did it. I got the Fatian Cup," Lin Kei said to himself silently. The middle-aged man smiled faintly, his expression filled with relief. In the room next door, Bernhard and Mao Qingjun clenched their fists tightly, pain written all over their faces. They lost the championship that they were sure to win. Peng Liyun was lying on the bed. He didn't wonder or think. His expression was rarely sad and had a strong sense of loss. Since he started practicing martial arts, he had never encountered such a setback. "I said I wouldn't take part in the university tournament next year." He smiled self-deprecatingly. At this time, Fang Zhirong had already returned to the locker room and buried his face in a white towel. Su Wanyan was supported by the staff. He endured the pain in his hip and slowly walked out of the arena. He didn't expect to end the match so beautifully in such a posture. The fourth round, Lu Qing wins. The final result, Songqing University Martial Arts Club wins. In the live broadcast room, the host Lu Chang reacted quickly and said with a smile, "Congratulations to Songqing University. Congratulations to Lu Cheng and Lin Quebec. Congratulations to every member of the Songqing University Martial Arts Club for winning the championship of this year's National University Martial Arts Competition. Congratulations to them for winning the first national championship in the history of Songqing University." He finished in one breath and felt a little excited. Chen Sanxing was full of emotions as he continued the conversation. "I believe everyone can see that Shanbei is indeed stronger than Songqing University. However, Lin Kei's courage to sacrifice himself and his determination to fight for his life helped to bridge the gap between them. Lu Cheng's will to withstand the pressure and his performance as the heavenly son of the age brought them the final victory. What I want to say is that the strongest team lost, but the best team won. Congratulations to Songqing University Martial Arts Club. You are the best." After shouting these words excitedly, he took a breath and said with a smile, "Now I'm looking forward to seeing how my old friend will fulfill his promise." Looking at the chaotic replies on the Weibo interface, Xiaowei was stunned for a full minute. Then he clicked on the nickname change section with a heavy arm. After some preparation, he closed his eyes and blindly typed in a new nickname. Poison Milk Hierarch. Phew. As soon as he finished, he leaned back and closed his eyes sadly. He felt that his superstitious self had died. Crack. When the referee announced the result, all-knowing man in gang hood angrily slammed the table and smashed his hard-earned treasure into pieces. He felt a sharp pain in his wrist as if there was a wound. After calming down, he suddenly realized that the bet of delete your account if Lu Qing reaches the inhuman stage was not very safe. The fourth round, Lu Qing wins. The final result, Songqing University Martial Arts Club wins. In the dormitory of the School of Arts of Songqing University, Yin Xiaoling thought that she would be so excited that she would post, drive, and celebrate. However, when she saw the result, she burst into tears. Her eyes were red and her vision was blurred. It's not easy. It's not easy. It's not easy for Lu Cheng and Lin Ke. After so many setbacks and so much effort, they finally won the championship. With tears in her eyes, she refreshed the forum and saw that it was full of champion posts. She cried even harder. It's not easy for everyone. Yin Xiaoling subconsciously turned around and looked at Mu Jinyan. She was also crying. Her eyes were red and her face was smeared with tears. You are crying too, Yin Xiaoling said in a choked voice. Isn't it a little inappropriate to use what a coincidence at this time? Well, I'm happy and worried at the same time, Mu Jinyan said while sobbing. Lingling, the effect of your wish is so good. That's... Yin Xiaoling was a little proud in her teary eyes. Mu Jinyan wiped her tears and said seriously, in order to not cause any backlash to them, from tomorrow onwards, I will supervise you to get up early. Yin Xiaoling's mouth opened into an O shape. She was dumbfounded. After the joyous celebration, the staff began to clean up the arena and rearrange the mats. In the process, there were singers and dancers. After waiting for 20 minutes, everything was ready. The president of the National University Martial Arts Federation, Mr. Fang Jinyu, stepped into the arena with several guests. He first awarded the silver medal to the depressed Shanbei University students. Next, let's welcome the champion of this year's National University Martial Arts Competition, Songqing University Martial Arts Club. The host invited loudly. Woo woo woo. Wave after wave of trumpet sounds, led by Shi, Lu Cheng, and the others walked up one by one. They saw the gold medals being held by the hostess and the fighter's flying trophy being placed on the table in front of them. All of a sudden, Lu Cheng's emotions surged again. He turned his head to look at Yin Zhika beside him with tears in his eyes. Her eyes were misty and drops of crystal tears slowly slid down her white cheeks. She was so beautiful. Didn't you say you never cry? Lu Cheng tried to calm down and joked with Yin Zhika. Yin Zhika sniffled and glared at him. She answered with a little sob. I said I never cry when I'm sad or sad. Now I'm so happy and moved. At this time, Li Mao and Kai Zhongming helped Lin Ke out of the emergency room. He strongly requested to participate in the award ceremony after his injury was stabilized. Lu Cheng squeezed a step to Yin Zhika's side, leaving the seat on the right side for his brother-in-law. Before they could say anything, Fang Jinyu approached them and gave them the gold medals one by one. How much wine can this thing exchange for? Shi murmured. Fang Jinyu, who pretended not to know him, almost sprained his waist. After coughing twice, Fang Jinyu hung the gold medal around Lin Ke's neck and praised him with a smile. You have perseverance, courage, and action. That's all a martial artist can do. Lin Ke nodded slightly in response. He looked as calm as usual, but his eyes were not calm at all. Young talent, worthy of the title of Heavenly Son. Fang Jinyu moved closer to him and praised him. She then put the gold medal on him. I've just started, Lu Cheng replied, half self-deprecating and half humorously. After the medals were handed out, Fang Jinyu picked up the Feitian Cup, which symbolized the highest honor, and was about to hand it to Coach Shi Jiangwo. Shi waved his hand and pointed at Lu Cheng. Give it to the brat. Give it to Lin Ke, Lu Cheng interrupted. Fang Jinyu didn't ask why. She solemnly handed the Feitian Cup to Lin Quebec. Lin Ke took it with both hands. Feeling the heavy weight, his vision suddenly blurred. He didn't recall the past. Instead, he suddenly raised the trophy high. The trophy for the champion of the National University Martial Arts Competition. Champion. The audience shouted, and so did Lu Cheng and the rest. Bang! 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 The gun salute exploded. Countless white and black fragments fell down, forming a glorious background for Lin Ke, Lu Cheng, Yin Zhika, and the rest. Champion. Chapter 412. Champion. In the beautifully decorated barbecue bar, Lu Cheng and the others raised their glasses and toasted each other. Once again, They celebrated the national championship, which was not easy to win. After the award ceremony, they first accepted an interview and took a group photo. Then they each carried the trophy around the field and returned to the locker room under the enthusiastic cheers of the audience. After showering, they got on the bus and returned to the hotel to put down their belongings. Then they gathered again and came here for a team celebration. Of course, Lin Ke was an exception. Seeing that everyone was so happy, Geezersher relaxed the rules and allowed them to drink to liven things up. Those who wanted to drink could drink, and those who didn't, he didn't force them. The only requirement was that they couldn't get drunk. Lu Cheng and Yen Zheka had their own principles, so they didn't make an exception. They held soda water and sour plum soup to their senior brothers and sisters. After another round of toasting, Sun Jian, who drank until his face was full of alcohol, picked up the beer bottle and poured a full glass. Then he pulled Lin Hua up, looked at the crowd and said humorously, "I'm just a salted fish who only knows how to shout 666. Let me toast to you all." Lu Cheng, Kai Zhongming and the others burst into laughter and said, "You can toast to us all. Why do you need senior sister Lin to toast to us?" Sun Jian smiled, then sighed and said, "That's right. When we go back to Songcheng, Hua Hua and I probably won't come to the martial arts club again. Let's take this opportunity to say goodbye to you all." He and Lin Hua were going to work in Huahai, so some things had to be finalized in advance. The thesis defense also had to be put on the agenda. There were too many things to be done. Lu Cheng and the others had long known and foreseen this, so they were mentally prepared. However, when they heard it from Sun Jian, they still felt sad. They had been together for almost 2 years, sweating and suffering together every day during the special training. How could there be no friendship? However, all good things must come to an end. Before Kai Zhongming and the others could say anything, Sun Jian said emotionally, "Although I wasn't like Hua Hua and didn't get a chance to compete in the nationals this time, I still have a deep impression of them. I don't think I'm not a part of this team." Speaking of this, he laughed. "When I first joined the martial arts club, I only wanted to practice martial arts and fight in competitions to vent my pent-up emotions. I didn't even think about the regional or national competitions. When I met senior brother Chun and the others, forget it, I won't say anything bad about them. In short, during those 2 years, I didn't feel like a member of the martial arts club. When I was free, I used the venue and strength training room. When I was not free, I ignored everyone. Over the past 2 years, I've been training, and working hard with everyone for the national competition. I truly feel that I'm a member of the martial arts club. I feel sad when I lose, but I feel happy when I win. In my father's words, I feel a sense of collective honor." Lu Cheng and Yen Zheka listened to him quietly. At the end of his speech, Sun Jian gulped down the beer in his glass and said emotionally, "I'm sorry, but I don't know what to say. This toast is from the 10,000-year substitute Sun Jian to everyone." Lu Cheng and the others picked up their glasses, drank the contents in one gulp, and answered in unison, "To senior brother Sun." Sun Jian filled a small glass of white wine for himself, held Lin Hua's hand and said, "I once read a book. It said that most of a person's life is ordinary, and there is nothing to write home about. It is a cycle that goes on day after day. Only occasionally can one jump out and find the light, leaving a different color in one's life. My future may be as ordinary as this, but I can proudly say that when I was at the peak of my life, Hua Hua, all of you, and I fought for our dreams together. We tasted the pain of failure and the joy of success together. We created miracles together. Burning the youth and leaving traces. That's great, that's great." He and Lin Hua raised their glasses together and said in a happy and sad voice, "Remember to contact us when you come to Huahai in the future. Goodbye. We really have to see each other again." As he spoke, he actually cried and drank up the liquid in his glass. Lin Hua held back his tears, raised his head, and drank his own glass. Li Xiaowen and the others had tears in their eyes and raised their glasses, saying that they would definitely see each other again. Lu Cheng and Yen Zheka also had tears in their eyes and mixed feelings. They also clinked their glasses and drank up, laughing and crying, happy and sad, excited and sad. Songqing University Martial Arts Club celebration came to an end. Sun Jian violated Geezer Shi's ban and drank until he was dead drunk. He kept repeating, "Goodbye, we have to see each other again." However, no one blamed him or scolded him. Standing outside the restaurant, the night wind blew. Everyone felt cool and refreshed. "Burp, I won't go back to the hotel with you. I have to walk the road with my Fangyuan." Kai Zhongming, who had always been a good drinker, pointed at the girl on the other side of the road and said, "Go ahead. Let's see how you'll play in the next 2 days." Lu Qing joked. At that time, he would be a foreign dog again. After watching Little Ming's back safely cross the crosswalk, Geezer Shi coughed and said, "I've been so busy with the nationals that I haven't seen many of my old friends in the capital. You guys can go back by yourselves. I still have something to do." "Yes, master." Lu Cheng, Yanjika and the others waved their hands. After Shi Jiangwo left, Li Xiaowen and He Zi became more active. They smiled at Lu Cheng, Yanjika, Sun Jian and Lin Hua, saying, "We're going shopping and drinking. We won't disturb you guys." "Take care of yourself," Lu Cheng reminded. "Don't worry, we have bodyguards." Li Xiaowen smiled and pointed at Li Mao. Laughing and joking, they crossed the street and left. At this time, Lin Hua stopped a taxi and pointed at Sun Jian. He said to Lu Cheng and Yanjika, "He's so drunk that I have to send him back first. Do you want to come with me? The hotel is not far. We're going to walk back." Lu Cheng smiled and helped Lin Hua put Sun Jian into the car. "Bye-bye." Lin Hua sat in the car and waved to them through the window. "Bye-bye." Lu Cheng and Yanjika responded with a smile. The car started and drove away. They suddenly found that they were alone in the cool night wind. The previous bustle and noise had returned to silence. After a short period of adaptation, Lu Cheng smiled and covered his chest with his left hand. He bowed like a gentleman and said, "Beautiful lady, no beautiful fairy, may I invite you to take a walk with me?" His right arm was wrapped in layers of bandages and splinted, so he could only wave it forward clumsily. According to the doctor, with his body's recovery ability, he wouldn't need to go through so much trouble in a few days. He would be as good as new in about 3 weeks. Of course, the premise was that he didn't get hurt again. Yanjika chuckled and said, "You disabled person, don't be so fond of acting." Although she said so, she still gave her right hand to Lu Cheng and let him hold it. Bathed in the neon light, the two strolled leisurely on the street, enjoying the faint aftertaste of joy. "Hey, when senior brother Sun Jian and senior sister Lin Hua just said goodbye, I was a little sad." Yanjika suddenly sighed while chatting. Lu Cheng felt the same way. He nodded and joked, "Coach Yan, I remember you once taught me that there are 2 kinds of friends. The first kind is those who only know each other for a short time, and will eventually drift apart. There's no need to be sad about it." Yanjika put on an evil smile and rolled her eyes at him, while gnashing her teeth. "I know that. But emotions can't be gone just like that." Lu Cheng was glanced at by her lively eyes, and suddenly felt some ripples in his heart. After looking around, he pointed to a quiet alley with his chin and said, "Let's go there." "Ah." Yanjika blinked with a blank face. "We can take a shortcut there." Lu Cheng answered without changing his expression, and pulled the girl to go there. Yanjika's face was full of confusion. Seeing that her boyfriend was so insistent, she no longer doubted him. Her steps became heavy and light. Every time she stepped on the floor tiles, she swayed, and her skirt fluttered. Lu Cheng looked at her greedily. When they walked a few steps into the alley, he suddenly pulled the girl into his arms. Yanjika looked up in confusion, and was about to say something, but Lu Cheng covered her mouth with his passionately. After a few moans, her body softened. She grabbed Lu Cheng's clothes with both hands and took the initiative to stick out her tongue, letting her boyfriend suck her sweetness. Lu Cheng kissed and hugged her tighter. He breathed in the girl's warm breath and felt the beauty of her delicate body. After a while, they finally separated and panted slightly. Yanjika glared at Lu Cheng with bright and watery eyes. She said with annoyance and amusement, Why are you so excited? We're going back to the hotel soon." Lu Cheng laughed and said, "I thought about it. Your parents will definitely come to talk to you tonight. When we go back to the hotel, we'll have to part for a while. So let's kiss first." Oh, you've learned to answer first. Yinjika thought about it and found it reasonable. It's all because of Coach Yan's good teaching. Lu Qing lowered his head and pressed his forehead against his little fairy's forehead. He murmured his inner feelings that he didn't have time to say. So good. We're the champions. We're the champions with you. Such a posture and such words softened Yenjika's heart. She raised her head, opened her pink lips slightly, and looked at her boyfriend with sparkling eyes. She looked like she was waiting for a kiss. Lu Qing naturally did as she wished. The two of them were entangled and dilly-dallying. They walked for half an hour and finally saw the entrance of the hotel. When they saw Ji Mingyu and Yan Kai, a car stopped beside them. The car door opened. Lin Kei, who had changed into a t-shirt and casual pants, got out of the car with difficulty and stood in front of them. Brother. Yenjika called out subconsciously. Lin Kei nodded slightly. He looked at them and said in a low voice, I might not go back to Songqing University. Lu Qing was stunned. Yenjika seemed to have expected it. Lu Qing knew that Lin Kei came to Songqing University to make up for his father's regret. He didn't like Peng Liyun, who really liked to study, nor did he like Ren Li, who didn't want to be an illiterate person. The usual courses and the final degree were almost meaningless to him. Once his wish was fulfilled, there would be nothing holding him back. However, Lu Qing didn't expect Lin Kei's farewell to come so quickly and so unexpectedly. Lin Kei still looked cold, but he was a little more talkative than before. He said calmly, I've heard a song before and remembered the lyrics. It's called The Good Days of Youth and Frivolity Are Over When You Grow Up. After pausing for a moment, he revealed an extremely faint smile. Using his usual indifferent tone, he said, That's right. I've been frivolous. It's time for me to grow up. After saying that, he turned around, opened the car door and sat in again, leaving only a lonely figure for Lu Qing and Yenjika. The car drove away. Lin Kei didn't turn his head. He just raised his hand and waved casually. The car and him went further and further away until they were out of sight. The bustle was gone. It was deserted. Lu Qing closed his eyes. Lin Kei's words seemed to be echoing in his ears. I've been frivolous. It's time for me to grow up. Chapter 413. Lu Qing and Yenjika were silent for a while. They walked side by side to the entrance of the hotel. My brother must have been scolded by Grandpa for awakening his supernatural ability, Yenjika said faintly as they walked. Lu Qing sighed. He did pay a lot. Anyway, he won the championship and his wish was fulfilled. There's no need to argue with your grandpa anymore. As someone who had fully experienced high school, he actually did not lack the experience of parting and sadness. However, at that time, his mentality and worldview were far from mature enough. He was full of longing for the future, and felt that meeting again was something that could happen often. His feelings for such things were more muddle-headed and not deep enough. But now the more he understood, the more he knew, the more he cherished the days when everyone fought together, suffered together, and broke through together. He understood that there might not be a future for some people, and some things once it was over. Therefore he couldn't help but feel sad. Luckily, Lin Kei was my brother-in-law. In the future he would also enter the pro scene, so they would see each other many times. It was just that it would be difficult for them to work together for the same goal, like they had in the past 2 years. Yeah, but it's still so sad. Yenjika pouted and looked wronged. Lu Qing was about to say something when he saw his father-in-law and mother-in-law coming out of the revolving door. He straightened his back and cleared his throat in a low voice. But he didn't let go of the girl's hand, as if he was saying something. Dad, Mom. Yenjika called twice, her cheeks turning red, but she didn't retract her right hand. Uncle Yan, Auntie Ji. Lu Qing followed suit and didn't feel at a loss. Yan Kai looked at their clasped hands and nodded slightly in response to Lu Qing's greeting. Okay. He opened and closed his mouth, as if he wanted to say something, but didn't in the end. Ji Mingyu laughed and said, Lu, how's your injury? Are you okay? You did a good job in the competition tonight. You surprised everyone again. Auntie, you flatter me. It's not a big deal. I'll be fine in a few weeks. Lu Cheng didn't show his eloquence or humor, but answered honestly. Good. Take care of yourself. Go sleep with me tonight. We can have a good chat. Let your father sleep on the sofa outside. Ji Mingyu looked at her daughter with a smile. Okay. Yenjika nodded slightly and turned to look at Lu Cheng. I'm going to my parents' place first. She paused, pursed her lips, tilted her head slightly and smiled. See you tomorrow, see you tomorrow. He waved to Yan Kai and Ji Mingyu and said, Uncle Auntie goodbye. See you tomorrow. Ji Mingyu chuckled and repeated her daughter's words. Yan Kai nodded elegantly. Watching the family of three leave, Lu Cheng sighed to himself. The atmosphere between his parents-in-law was indeed awkward and subtle. Even he, who had seen such a big scene before, was quite reserved. He wondered if someone as strong as Talker would still be able to act freely in front of his parents-in-law. While letting his mind wander, Lu Cheng returned to his room and turned on the lights. On the right was a big bed that he hadn't slept on for many days. On the left were items that were strewn everywhere. Lu Cheng suddenly felt like he had returned to a lonely home after a business trip for several months. The room was bright and full of loneliness and strangeness. This is the night after winning the championship? I'm the only one left. Lu Cheng sighed. Without changing his shoes, he walked to the floor-to-ceiling window. Outside, the skyscrapers were towering, lights were everywhere, and the Milky Way was everywhere. It was both prosperous and lonely. After staring blankly for a while, Lu Cheng suddenly felt his phone vibrate. He quickly took it out and saw Yenjika's message. I'm chatting with my parents. They have a good impression of you. Yenjika smiled shyly. Lu Cheng's lips suddenly curled up. The sadness he felt just now disappeared without a trace. He replied with a smirk. So we can get married now. If you wish. The revolution hasn't succeeded yet. Comrade, you still need to work hard. Yenjika said. Lu Cheng couldn't help but laugh. He raised his hand to look at the love ring, and then looked outside again. This time, he only felt that the lights in the night revealed a faint but lasting warmth, illuminating the way home for the late traveler. The next day, Lu Cheng, who had won the nationals, woke up early as usual. He didn't relax or slack off. His arm was injured, so it was difficult for him to practice many of his moves. He could only focus on internal training, footwork, and leg work. In the morning light, he turned and created wind, whistling as he wished. At 7:40 a.m., Lu Cheng finished his usual training and returned to the hotel. He washed his body with difficulty. At this time, he, who was completely free, suddenly had some thoughts. He felt that the experience of winning the nationals last night was still so unreal and so dreamy. If the gold medal wasn't right beside him, he probably wouldn't have believed it. It hasn't even been a day, and I'm already thinking about it. Lu Cheng shook his head and laughed. Following the throbbing in his heart, he took the card, left the room, and prepared to take a taxi to the martial arts arena in the capital. Nothing happened along the way. The skyscrapers on both sides of the road were similar in every city. Lu Cheng was in a leisurely mood. He looked around with interest and occasionally chatted with Yenjika. Unknowingly, he arrived at his destination. He put on a pair of plain glasses, put his hands in his pockets, and strolled to the entrance of the martial arts arena. In the surrounding square, the crowd that had entered and left last night had long disappeared. Even the ground was clean, leaving no trace of the previous battle. Passing by several men and women who came to open the door, Lu Cheng's mood became extremely good. Even the outline of the tiles under his feet was pleasing to the eye. The entrance of the arena had been reopened. It was empty and sparsely populated. On both sides of the wall, there were posters of his confrontation with Peng Liyun. Smiling, Lu Cheng put his hands in his pockets and walked step by step to the arena. He found a place to sit down and softly looked at the place where the battle took place last night. He looked at the two children who were fighting with their fists and feet. Their moves were normal, but their bodies had yet to develop, and their strength was insufficient. Their footsteps were light, and they did not have any substantial power. Moreover, they had learned from the movies and television shows. Every move they made required a shout, and the fight was lively and lively. Hey, be careful. Don't hurt yourself. Several parents kept reminding him by the side until he was driven to the stands by the coach. Noticing that Lucheng was looking at the arena with a smile, an extroverted parent laughed and said, "Children insist on learning martial arts. We have no choice but to accompany them while we are free." Lucheng thought for a while and said with a smile, "Practicing martial arts is a good thing." As he said, he stood up and added, "Moderate training is good for development. If not, it will hinder development." The parents looked at each other in confusion. Lucheng did not say anything. He put his hands in his pockets and walked to the door. When he was about to go out, he looked back and looked at the familiar yet strange arena. Vaguely, from the perspective of a bystander, he seemed to see Lin Kei lifting the trophy, himself shouting to the sky, and Yen Zhika running to the arena. The corners of his mouth curled up as he turned around and left the place. Outside the arena, Lucheng took out his phone, took a picture of the entrance and sent it to Yen Zhika. A martial arts arena. Yen Zhika was surprised at first, and then she said angrily, "Why didn't you take me? Let's go together next time." Lucheng said with a silly smile, "I just had a sudden impulse." Yen Zhika giggled with a hand over her mouth emoji. "My silly Ching actually has such a rough side." After that, she added, "Empress Dowager asked you to come for lunch. The address is..." Lucheng's leisurely mood faded away. He asked, "Do you want to buy cigarettes, alcohol, and fruits? I think I should bring these things for my first visit." "No need," Yen Zhika said with a confused expression. "It's not a formal visit. We're just having lunch together. Besides, we're still students." "But it's the first time I'm meeting your parents. I have to show my respect to them," Lucheng said with an emoji touching his chin. "No one will blame you for being polite. I don't have experience. I'll ask Empress Dowager." Yen Zhika hesitated for a while, and decided to ask for help. Lucheng said with a smile, "Empress Dowager probably doesn't know. Your dad only visited you for the first time a few years after you were born." "It's okay. The focus is on my parents. If they think it's okay, then it's okay." Yen Zhika paused for a while and said, "Empress Dowager said you don't need to bring anything. She wants you to relax and not be too cautious." "Okay. I'll come over shamelessly?" Lucheng asked. Yen Zhika said with an emoji of rolling eyes, "Don't rush. Go back and change your clothes first. Wear that dark-colored shirt." And, looking at her nagging, Lucheng suddenly laughed and said, "Ku, are you a little nervous?" "I'm just worried that you don't know what to do," Yen Zhika said with a roll of the eyes emoji. Hee. Lucheng didn't expose her and replied, "I'll listen to Coach Yan's instructions." Because she cared about herself and their future, Ku was nervous and uneasy. "Yeah, me too." Back at the hotel, he took out his clothes and put them on according to Yen Zhika's instructions. Then he called a taxi and was ready to go. When he got to the lobby, he saw Li Mao, Li Xiaowen, and the others who were happily going out to play. He could feel their happy mood. Waving goodbye, Lucheng stood at the door and waited for the taxi. The sun was shining brightly. Chapter 414. The place for dinner was a courtyard without any sign. When Lucheng walked to the door, Yen Zhika, in a white knee-length dress, was already waiting outside. Her beautiful black hair was blown by the wind through the alley, gently dancing in the wind. It was as beautiful as a picture scroll. Seeing her boyfriend, her eyes lit up. She stepped forward and helped Lucheng to tidy up the collar and wrinkles of his shirt. She smiled and said, "Don't be nervous. Just eat and talk." "I wasn't nervous before. Now that you mention it, I feel a little nervous." Lucheng deliberately made a joke. Yen Zhika's beautiful eyes sparkled. She glanced at him, took his uninjured hand, and turned towards the yard. "Let's go." Passing through the mottled gate, the vines on the flower rack, and the clear little pond, Lucheng and Yen Zhika entered the row of houses on the east side, into the quiet and secluded warm pavilion, surrounded by the faint fragrance of flowers. A quaint square table was placed by the window. Outside, flowers were blooming, leaves were lush, and waves were gently swaying. Lucheng didn't have time to look at the calligraphy and paintings hanging on the wall, or the objects in the treasure pavilion. He cast his eyes on the square table and his father-in-law and mother-in-law. "Hello, uncle and auntie. Sit down." Ji Mingyu smiled and pointed to the seat opposite Yan Kai. "Okay." Lu Qing sat down with Yenjika. Just as the awkward and subtle atmosphere was brewing, Ji Mingyu said with a smile, "In terms of the local cuisine of the capital, this one ranks in the top 5 in my mind. And the environment is more suitable. Hehe, I prefer Xioshan food now. You should be able to get used to it. Actually, I'm not a picky eater. The ingredients are not exotic, and the taste is not bad. I don't have a problem." Lu Qing responded with a smile. Ji Mingyu nodded. It's not a big deal to use the best ingredients to make delicious food. But it's a real skill to use ordinary ingredients to make ordinary dishes that people can't stop praising. The combination of the two, the best ingredients and the real skill, makes delicious food. Like this one. Yenjika asked deliberately to liven up the atmosphere. With the domineering Empress Dowager taking the initiative to lead the conversation, the awkward atmosphere faded away. Lu Qing felt more at ease and answered all the questions in a well-behaved manner. Yan Kai didn't talk to him much. He just echoed Ji Mingyu's words from time to time, or glanced at Yenjika, who kept putting food into her semi-disabled boyfriend's bowl. His heart ached for his daughter's thoughtfulness. Ka had really grown up. Dishes were put on the table and taken away one by one. Lu Qing, who already had an inhuman appetite, was too embarrassed to show his true colors. He mainly chatted and ate as a supplement. Well, the dishes are really good, but the portion is not enough. Fortunately, the Empress Dowager ordered more than 10 portions. She is indeed a martial arts aristocratic family. She even paid attention to these details. He thought silently. At the end of the conversation, Yan Kai glanced at him, took a sip of tea, and took the initiative to ask for the first time. "Lu, what are your plans for the future? Arrangements?" Lu Qing was stunned for a moment. Just as he was about to organize his words, Yan Kai added, "Your master has a close relationship with the military, so there must be some disputes in this regard. Do you want to take this path or play professional matches?" "Uncle Yan, I'm actually very afraid of death." Lu Qing thought about it and said self-deprecatingly, "If it's not necessary, I really don't want to risk my life. Playing professional matches suits me better." Yan Kai nodded slightly. "Do you have any goals? To become a physical invulnerability expert?" "Yes," Lu Qing answered honestly. "First, all the martial artists I'm familiar with are all physical invulnerability experts. I hope to have the strength to challenge them and compete with them. Second," he paused and continued, "second, because Ku's grandparents are both physical invulnerability experts." Yenjika's eyes curved into a smile, and she bit her lip. She wanted to say something coquettishly, but because her parents were present, she forced herself to hold it in. Yan Kai seemed to be reminded of the past. He was suddenly touched. After a moment of silence, he said, "Not bad. Work hard. Although I consider myself successful in my career and have good self-control, every time I meet my parents-in-law who are physical invulnerability experts, I still have mixed feelings. Besides, most of Mingyu's business depends on the Ji family and the 2 physical invulnerability experts." Yan Kai didn't say anything more. Ji Mingyu changed the topic and made the atmosphere more natural again. In the end, she smiled at Lu Qing and said, "Lu, are you going back to Songqing tomorrow morning?" "Yes, the flight is after 10. Lu Qing answered honestly. Ji Mingyu turned to Yenjika. "Could come with us today. When we reach the capital, we have to visit some elders." "Okay." Yenjika agreed in a crisp voice. After saying goodbye, she walked Lu Qing to the door of the courtyard. "That's it." Lu Qing looked back and asked blankly. This was completely different from what he imagined meeting his parents-in-law. "That's right. What else do you want to do?" Yenjika blinked her eyes and asked him in amusement. "Shouldn't you ask me about the details? Like my surname, my name, where I'm from, where I'm going, how many people are in my family, how many acres of land each person has, how many cows are in the fields?" Lu Qing answered in a joking tone. According to other people's experience, such meetings were always followed by interrogation. Pfft. Yenjika laughed. It's not like they don't have the means to find out your details. Even if they don't, they should ask me in private first. Who would ask you directly? That's so rude and embarrassing. Okay. Lu Cheng was relieved. Yenjika pursed her lips. Suddenly, she turned her head to the side and added, Empress Dowager is very, very satisfied with you now. She thinks you're talented and reliable. When it comes to being able to do what she says, she supports you. My dad can only accept it. Lu Cheng was delighted. He deliberately exaggerated. This is called the more a mother-in-law looks at her son-in-law, the more satisfied she is? In your dreams. Yenjika turned back and rolled her eyes at him. But her eyes were full of unconcealable joy. They chatted for a while before going back. Lu Cheng had nothing to do in the afternoon, so he relaxed. However, he didn't have a gathering with his high school classmates in the capital. He just chatted with them on QQ for half a day. At night, Qifeng called him at around 10 o'clock as per her daily habit. She wanted to share with him how many congratulations she had received today. The next day, Lu Cheng didn't relax. He still went to the nearby park to practice. When he was about to finish, he suddenly found his master standing beside him with a wine pot. Lin Ke was caught back to Shushan study. He probably won't come back. What's your plan? Geyser raised his chin. Without waiting for Lu Cheng's reply, he continued, I've helped your principal win the championship, and I've rested enough. You can barely finish your apprenticeship, so it's time to leave. Brat, do you want to enter the professional competition in advance, or what? Master is leaving too. Lu Cheng was in a trance, but the idea in his heart became clearer and firmer. He thought for a while and said, Master, I've improved to my current level in 1.5 years. I'm leaving too quickly. This national competition has exposed many problems. I want to settle down for a year, and enter the professional competition when I've reached the inhuman stage. Well, this may be better. Also, Lin Ke is gone. You're gone too. If I leave too, won't the martial arts club return to its previous state? Yes, it's stronger than before, but everyone hasn't had time to grow up. It's likely that they won't be able to enter the division next semester. This will be a big blow to them. Besides, the students of Songqing University have finally supported us again. They must be very disappointed and sad if we suddenly return to the starting point. I think I want to stay for another year and lead the others. I'll leave when they grow up and have new blood. By that time, I'll be in my senior year and won't have many classes. Even if I leave early, I can still get a diploma. Geyser smiled, drank a mouthful of wine and said, I knew it. You little brat, just lift your butt a little. I know what shit you want to shit. Suddenly erupting with superpowers is something that Lin Ke can do, and you will definitely choose to stay for another year. However, when the time comes, this old man has some things for you to do. What things? Lu Cheng asked in surprise. Things related to the 9 words formula and Emperor Yen Force. I'll pick some simple things for you to do by yourself. You'll gain something and also train yourself. We'll talk about it when the time comes. Geyser said seriously, which was rare for him. Because he didn't have the Emperor Yen Force that evolved from Zhurong Force, Lu Cheng's Frost Force didn't evolve into Ice Spirit Force in order to balance ice and fire. Okay. Lu Cheng suppressed his curiosity and didn't ask further. At this time, Geyser clicked his tongue and put his hands behind his back. Settle down well. Let's see how long it takes for you to reach the inhuman stage. After the training, the members of the martial arts club gathered and rushed to the airport to fly back to Songqing. Along the way, the others only knew that Lin Ke had returned to Shushan study to recuperate. They were very excited to return home in glory. Lu Cheng revealed to Yenjika that his master was also leaving. Both of them were very sad. After getting off the plane, a school bus came to pick them up. Lu Cheng and the others returned to the new campus of Songqing University after a long absence. This time, the school bus stopped directly outside the martial arts arena, so that they could put the Nationals champion trophy in the honor room first. On Monday, they would meet the principal to receive the commendation. After getting off the bus and walking to the entrance of the martial arts arena, Lu Cheng turned his head and complained to Yenjika with a smile. Suddenly, it feels a little strange. While talking, the two approached the entrance. Suddenly they were stunned. Because the inside was full of students. Students spontaneously filled the seats. There were thousands of them, both male and female. They were holding banners and shouting in unison in an organized manner. "We're here! We're the champions!" The warm and surging atmosphere hit him in the face. Lu Cheng's heart suddenly settled down and unconsciously revealed a smile. "We're the champions." End of part 2. Chapter 415. Ding. A message rang. Lu Cheng picked up his phone and found that the champion's prize money had been transferred to his account. Your savings account ending with XXXX received 250000 yuan electronically at 9:45 on April 30th. Current balance is 904,724.84 yuan. Since this National University Martial Arts competition had attracted a lot of attention, the broadcasting copyright fee and ticket income had also increased. Every team that made it to the next round could get at least 500,000 yuan, which could be used to cover the transportation fee, accommodation fee for more than half a month, bus rental fee, and training ground rental fee. There was still some left over, which could be used to give some subsidies to the coaches and team members. If a team entered the top 8, they could get at least 800,000 yuan. The top 4 would get 1,100,000 yuan, the second place would get 1,400,000 yuan, and the champion would get 1,800,000 yuan. This time, Songqing University was even more generous than during the preliminaries. After deducting 380,000 yuan for various expenses, they only took 300,000 yuan for management fee. As the core members, Geezer Shi, Lu Cheng and Lin Ke each got 250,000 yuan. Yan Zhika, who had more fights and won the key victory in the capital, got 100,000 yuan. Li Mao, who fought until he was injured, got 80,000 yuan. Kai Zongming, who fought alone, got 60,000 yuan. Lin Hua, who fought against the He brothers, got 40,000 yuan. Sun Jian, He Zi and Wang Dali, the 3 substitutes, got 15,000 yuan each. Li Xiaowen, who did daily chores, got 10,000 yuan. As for the rest, the team members who participated in the special training, but didn't go to the capital got 3,000 yuan each. The rest went to the public account of the martial arts club to cover their daily expenses, such as computer maintenance, dinner parties. Unknowingly, I'm going to be a millionaire soon. Lu Qing took a screenshot and showed off his little bank account to Yan Zhika, feeling both happy and amused. He didn't think that he was rich, but as a college student, he didn't need to buy a house for the time being. He didn't need to consider buying a car, so he didn't need to prepare for his wedding, honeymoon expenses, funds to feed his children, and future retirement savings. What's more, he could go to the ice god sex business and get some elixirs and ingredients every month. He spent most of his time on campus, and only went out for a date once every 1 or 2 weeks. No matter how much he ate, as long as he didn't chase after the best ingredients, he wouldn't consume too much. Adding all of these together, even including the extra elixirs for the swordsman formula, he had used less than 100,000 elixirs since the middle of February. In the past, Lu Qing would have been under a lot of pressure to make money. However, with Wu Ting's father's endorsement contract of 700,000 yuan, and the prize of the national competition champion of 250,000 yuan, it was inevitable that he would feel that no matter how much money he spent, he wouldn't be able to spend it. Looks like I'm still too naive. He silently gave himself a thumbs up. Yan Zhika replied quickly. My bonus has arrived. Including mine, you're a millionaire. Shouldn't we say that our family happens to be millionaires? Lu Cheng proudly pushed up his sunglasses and casually said, I've finished packing. Now I'm here to look for you. They had already made plans for a trip on the 1st of May. Thinking that they didn't have classes for the first half of the month and had to rely on self-study, they decided to leave early and return late. Not only could they avoid the traffic rush hour, but they could also almost double their holiday. What a wonderful thing. Yan Zhika replied with a blank expression. Wait for a while. I'll put something on and do it a little. Are you going to put on makeup? What a serious treatment. I'm a little flattered. Lu Cheng replied with a raised eyebrow expression. Didn't you say that I pay special attention to girls, and that I'm not serious about dating you? Humph, I'll fulfill your wish. Yenjika sent an emoji of looking up at the sky. I'm looking forward to it. Lu Cheng began to imagine. Putting down his phone, he looked around in his free state. He happened to see model worker Zhang Jingye carrying his luggage and walking to the door, passing by him. Going on a trip with your girlfriend? Lu Cheng asked with a smile. Yeah. You too? The northwestern man Zhang Jingye glanced at the big backpack on the table. Yeah. You're not going to class in the afternoon? Lu Cheng teased. Zhang Jingye looked at him from the corner of his eyes and laughed. I think you're not going either. Yeah, what a coincidence. Lu Cheng replied exaggeratedly. What a coincidence. Zhang Jingye replied with a smile, and walked out of the door of the small dormitory. At this time, the head of the dormitory, Zhao Chong, took out a few books and stuffed them into his bag. He joked, I'm envious of you guys who have girlfriends. I can only focus on class. Hey Chong, didn't you say that you wanted to make a move on an old classmate? Lu Cheng asked curiously. During the winter vacation, Zhao Chong reconnected with a high school classmate who was also studying in Songcheng. In the past few months, they had been chatting passionately. In the dormitory, he announced that he would seize the opportunity to make a move on her and get rid of the label of being single. Zhao Chong coughed twice and said with a blush, I'm just thinking about it. Classmate, you can't just think about it when it comes to chasing a girl. You have to put it into action. Don't be afraid of failure. Lu Cheng first reminded him seriously and then snickered. You'll get used to it if you fail too many times. Anyway, there's the Casanova next door. It's not wrong to ask for more advice. Zhao Chong suddenly sighed. If I were half as capable as you, I would have made a move on her with full confidence. Since you said so, what else can I do? I can only reluctantly be proud of it. Lu Cheng smiled and spread out his hands. But then again, when I mustered up the courage to chase my coup, I didn't have much ability. I just used Piao Rou and that's how confident I was. He jokingly ran his fingers through his hair. Of course, to be honest, the substantial breakthrough in his relationship with Ku was because he had put her in his shoes during the Warrior Sage Challenge tournament. He had gone through a period of high-spirited and miraculous journey with her. He had also shown the qualities and potential that made the girl feel reliable. Mustering up the courage to chase was a necessary condition, but not a sufficient one. After all, there was no rule in the world that if you were to chase a girl, she would have to accept it. You're right. Zhao Chong seemed to have just thought of this point. He seriously pondered and said, forget it. An elder used his own life experience to teach us that we should study more while we are young and grasp more knowledge in all aspects. We shouldn't waste our time on love. Lu Cheng was speechless and watched Zhao Chong carry his bag and leave the dormitory. After playing with his phone for a while, he finally received a message from Yenjika. The girl said, you can go out in 5 minutes. Okay. Lu Cheng quickly replied and carefully put his right arm through the strap of the backpack to carry his luggage. I'd better wait at the door of Ku's dormitory for these 5 minutes. When he was about to step out, old Qiu Zhigao ran back with sweat all over his face and shouted, Damn, I'm late. He looked up and saw Lu Cheng. He smiled and asked with expectation, Cheng, do you think it's possible for me to reach the amateur third pin before my senior year? After almost 4 semesters of hard work, he sadly found that he was not cut out for studying. Although he had never failed a course, he was not in the top 20% of the class. He had not even won the lowest scholarship. No matter how hard he tried, he could not catch up. So he began to think about the problem realistically. He planned to pick up martial arts and get a certificate of amateur third pin, which would increase his chances of finding a job in his senior year. With your physique and strength, as long as you can hold more than 3 times a week, there's a good chance. Lu Cheng answered pertinently. Qiu Zhigao suddenly beamed with joy. In his mind, Lu Cheng was already a Grandmaster in the martial arts circle of the university. If he said he had no problem, then there was no problem. Okay, if you have time, please give me some advice. Feel free to tell me if you need anything. Wuxia was in a hurry to go to class. He hurriedly packed his bag and ran into the dormitory bathroom to take a cold shower. Phew, everyone's college development is different. Lu Cheng sighed and left the small dormitory with his bag. When he passed by the next door, he glanced at him casually and was suddenly stunned. Student Xiaoming was immersed in his studies. Occasionally, he would write furiously and draft a manuscript. Holy **T. What kind of blow did you get? Lu Qing was shocked and blurted out. Kai Zongming looked up and said grumpily, "What's wrong with studying hard? I haven't been in class for almost a month. I have to make up for it." As he spoke, he revealed a self-deprecating smile. "I didn't say it. My Feng Yuan said it." "Then why don't you go to the classroom to study by yourself?" Lu Qing suddenly realized and asked subconsciously, "Is there a problem with studying by myself in the dormitory?" Little Ming asked in confusion, "Aren't you afraid that you can't resist the temptation of computer games?" Lu Qing laughed. "Since mobile games became popular, I can play in the classroom if I want to. I don't care about appearances." Kai Zongming answered righteously. Lu Qing clicked his tongue and said, "But the atmosphere in the classroom is different. Everyone is studying. You will be embarrassed to play mobile games by yourself. So you will control yourself." Kai Zongming snorted and said with a look of disdain, "Cheng, do you think I'm the kind of person who will be influenced by others and be affected by the atmosphere, and then stop playing games and studying seriously?" "No." Lu Qing gave him a thumbs up, turned around and rushed to the door. After waiting for a few minutes outside the third dormitory, Lu Qing saw his girlfriend walking out gracefully with a new suitcase. Her bangs were elegant. Her facial features were delicate. Her dress was elegant, and her legs were straight. She was like a painting. Ku is so beautiful after dressing up. Lu Qing didn't hide his loving and burning eyes. Yenjika raised her chin slightly and looked away proudly. "Let me do it." Lu Qing reached out to take her suitcase. "No need. I'll take it myself, you handicapped person." Yenjika glanced at him. Lu Qing laughed and said, "Handicapped? What the hell is handicapped?" Yenjika smiled and then turned to him. "You have to hold my hand when you have time." Lu Qing smiled and said, "It's okay. I'm not wearing a splint. It's not a problem to hold a fairy's hand." Yenjika was about to say something when her phone rang. It was a call. "My grandpa." She glanced at it and said to Lu Qing in confusion. Then she chose to pick it up. "Hello, Grandpa?" "Hello, Ku." Ji Jianzhang's slightly old voice laughed. "Bring Lu here on the 1st of May. Let me and your grandma see him." Chapter 416. Yenjika was a little confused at her grandpa's order. She looked at Lu Qing and didn't reply directly. What the hell is going on? Why is Grandpa suddenly asking me to take Cheng to Jiangnan? Why didn't he say so earlier? Lu Cheng's senses were very strong now. He had already heard everything in front of him. While thinking, he nodded to his girlfriend with a smile, indicating that he was fine with it. Although he was disappointed that he couldn't travel with Ku alone, getting the approval of her elders would give her a strong sense of security. Anyway, there will be similar opportunities in the future. After asking for her boyfriend's opinion, Yenjika came back to her senses. She puffed up her cheeks and said, "Grandpa, why didn't you say so earlier? Cheng and I have other plans." Okay, we'll come over. We'll change it right away." Ji Jianzhang smiled and said, "I thought you would take the initiative to bring him to see me. But after waiting day after day, there was still no news. So I had to be thick-skinned and invite him myself." Yenjika blushed and smiled embarrassedly. "I was thinking of waiting for the summer vacation." She was afraid that her silly Cheng would be bullied, so she planned to wait until Lu Cheng reached the inhuman stage before bringing him to the Ji family. "Let's do it today. Send me Lu's identity information. I'll ask someone to arrange the itinerary for you." Ji Jianzhang chuckled. After the call, Yenjika glanced at Lu Cheng and said coquettishly, "Grandpa, you're too much. We've already booked the plane tickets and hotel before you tell us." "It's okay. Traveling anywhere is still traveling." Lu Cheng smiled comfortingly. "But my strategy won't be of any use. Coach Yen, We'll have to rely on you to lead the way. Don't worry, I won't lose you. Yenjika smiled and was touched by her boyfriend's understanding. Then she deliberately livened up the atmosphere. I'm so angry. I can't get a full refund. It's all Grandpa's fault. I'll ask him to give you a big red packet. Red packet? Lu Qing asked blankly. It's a tradition in Jiangnan. Men and women who have confirmed their relationship cough. Yenjika's cheeks were slightly red. She turned her head and said, when you visit for the first time, the elders will give you a red packet. It's a red packet from my grandson-in-law. Lu Qing concluded with a smile. To be honest, he was not nervous about meeting Yenjika's grandpa and grandma. In the eyes of the young people of his generation, the father-in-law and mother-in-law were directly related to the girlfriend. Naturally, they would pay more attention to it and feel more nervous. Grandpa and grandma didn't seem to have a big impact on them after a generation. As for the fact that he was a physical invulnerability expert, it wasn't like he hadn't seen one before. He didn't have a physical invulnerability expert backing him up. While they were chatting and laughing, Yenjika sent Lu Cheng's personal information to her grandpa and waited for him to coordinate. The Songqing University students around them had already cast their gazes on them and sent silent greetings. Some of them even plucked up the courage to ask for autographs. Since winning the national championship, Lu Cheng had been in the state of everyone in Songqing University. He had become the idol of many seniors, juniors, and classmates of the same year. Wherever he went, he would attract attention and feel goodwill. Just as he was considering the fact that the sun was getting brighter and the number of onlookers was increasing, he had to drag Ku to a cafe or other places to avoid the heat. Soon a phone call came to her. He told her about several first-class cabins and asked her to choose. If she was still not satisfied, she could use Shushan Study's private jet and apply for a flight route. Let's take the 12:30 flight. Yenjika didn't want to bother others and quickly made a decision. Then they took the school bus out of Songqing University and arrived at the airport according to the original plan. However, the flight had changed, and the destination on the ticket was changed from the neighboring province to Jiangnan Province. There was no delay and no delay. The flight took off on time. Lu Cheng drank the mineral water that was cooled by itself and casually chatted with his girlfriend. Ku, I'm thinking about a problem. What? Yenjika turned her head and looked at her boyfriend with clear and beautiful eyes. If, and I'm saying if, your parents and your grandparents are not satisfied with me and don't want you to marry me, what will you do? Lu Qing asked with a smile. It was because Empress Dowager was satisfied with him, and his father-in-law didn't object that he dared to ask this question. It was just a way for couples to communicate. Yenjika rolled her eyes and bit her lower lip with her white teeth. Her dimples appeared. Of course I'll listen to them. Lu Qing was stunned. Ku, that's not the right answer. Seeing his reaction, Yenjika covered her mouth and chuckled, like spring water flowing out of a spring. In the end, she said, "You're such a good liar." After joking, she pursed her lips and said while thinking, "I'm the one getting married, not them. My opinion is the most important. If they don't object, I'm happy. If they object, I'll do what I want. As long as I have the ability to support myself and live a good life, other people's opinions are just decorations. I don't think the blessings of relatives are important. Empress Dowager didn't give me any blessings, but she still lived happily. I find that you are deeply influenced by Empress Dowager." Lu Qing was delighted by her answer. "You have a gem in front of you." Yenjika smiled and then asked, "What about you? If your parents don't like me, what will you do?" *CK, asking about this kind of thing always brings me back to myself. Lu Qing criticized himself in his mind. First he complimented. "My Ku is so cute, so pretty, so kind, and so sensible. My parents will definitely like you." He paused for a moment and said in a serious tone, "My thoughts are about the same as yours. Yes, it's all thanks to Coach Yan's good influence. Also, maybe it's because I've grown up. I have the strength and confidence to not rely on my parents, and I can live a good life on my own. Therefore, their opinions are only for reference. I will be filial to them, but that doesn't mean that I have to listen to everything they say. Actually, in my family now, I'm pretty much the one who makes the decisions for me. This was a natural evolution of family status. As long as one's character was not weak, not stupidly filial, and was able to make a decision, after one's career had reached a certain level, one would almost always make decisions for his parents instead of them. Yenjika listened to Lu Qing quietly, her eyes sparkling. But in the end, she burst out laughing. Qing, haha, I just thought of a saying. Haha, when you have a wife, you forget your mother. Hey, be serious. Lu Qing spread his hands helplessly. When couples were together, as long as they were serious about getting married and spending the rest of their lives together, they would inevitably fantasize about the future and discuss every aspect of their marriage life. Unknowingly, the plane began to descend and landed steadily on the tarmac. After taxiing for a while, Lu Qing and Yenjika exited the cabin and walked towards the arrival hall. On the way, the girl received a call and turned to Lu Qing. Qing, let's go straight to the parking lot later. Brother Lingqian is coming to pick me up. The previous generation of the Ji family had the word Ming, while the current generation had the word Ling. Ji Lingqian was not from Ji Jianzhang's branch, but belonged to his younger brother's branch. He was a martial artist at 28 years old, and had been in the inhuman stage for 2 years. He was a fifth pin professional, and was the vice president of the Ji family's security company. He had a good relationship with this side. Yenjika's first uncle's daughter was her closest cousin Ji Lingxi. Her second uncle's 2 children were her cousin, Ji Lingfang and Ji Lingyun. Brother Lingqian is coming personally. Haha, every time you mention him, I'm reminded of my pocket change. Lu Qing joked, dragging his suitcase with his left hand, and letting the girl hold his right hand. Yenjika pursed her lips and laughed softly. Me too. I always laugh when I call him that. You should call him Brother Lingqian too. When you see my grandparents, you should call them Grandpa Ji and Grandma Do, or Senior Ji and Senior Do. She seriously reminded him about how to address him. It didn't take long for them to find the location Ji Lingqian had mentioned. They saw a dark blue SUV. Ji Lingqian was tall and thin, with handsome features and a calm temperament. He was casually dressed in a dark casual shirt and pants. When he saw Lu Qing and Yenjika walking over hand in hand, he shook his head and smiled. Lu Qing, isn't your arm injured? Don't spoil my sister. Brother Lingqian, what are you talking about? He insisted on holding my hand and didn't allow me to carry my own luggage. Yenjika pouted. Brother Lingqian. Lu Qing followed suit. He smiled and moved his right arm. It's already healed. Ji Lingqian sighed. Seeing you like this reminds me of my first love. Hey, get in the car. We'll talk in the car. The car door opened. The interior was spacious. There were curtains and partitions blocking the driver's seat, so that the driver couldn't see the situation behind. The 2 rows of seats were arranged so that they faced each other. There was a bar counter and a small refrigerator around them. After putting down their luggage, Lu Qing didn't look around the car. He sat down with Yenjika. Ji Lingqian plopped down on the seat opposite them. What do you want to drink? He smiled and pointed at the bar counter. I'm not drinking. I drank a lot on the plane. Yenjika turned to Lu Qing. How about you? I'm not drinking either. Lu Qing shook his head. As they spoke, the car door closed. The car moved forward steadily and made silent turns. Ji Lingqian crossed his arms in front of him and laughed. Lu Qing, I'll call you Little Lu, otherwise we'll be too distant. I've watched your key matches in the university tournament. Not bad. You have a good eye. You're much better than I was when I was young. No wonder second grandpa invited you here. Speaking of this, he looked at Yenjika and said, second grandpa did this in a hurry. Everyone was away for the holidays. I went to the south to do a security mission. I was so tired that I was resting at home. But I was asked to do this. I thought Grandpa had it all arranged. That's good. Yenjika was puzzled at first, but then she sighed in relief. This way, Qing only needed to see Grandpa and Grandma. It would be easier and less awkward. Her boyfriend would feel bad for her. What's good about it? Lingxi and Lingfang said they wanted to come back and meet the heavenly son of the era. Ji Lingqian snorted. Regardless of whether Ji Lingqian was being sincere or not, Lu Qing felt an inexplicable sense of vanity when he heard his words. He was secretly pleased. Along the way, Yanjika and Ji Lingqian were the only ones chatting. Lu Qing interjected from time to time, so he wasn't too reserved. When the car arrived at the Ji family's old house and entered the courtyard, Lu Qing's breath caught his attention. Through the dark glass, he saw a thin old man with graying sideburns standing beside a flower stand. "Grandpa!" Yanjika jumped out of the car and shouted. Lu Qing followed and greeted him respectfully. Senior Ji. This was the famous heaven-leaning sword. His aura was as deep as the sea. Ji Jianzhong smiled and nodded. He said to Yanjika, "Could go in and meet your grandma." At this point, he turned to look at Lu Cheng. "Little Lu, accompany me for a walk." You're tuning in to the Li Mei's Wuxia Whispers YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.